the world on our robust live stream at wordradio.com. That is WURDradio.com. Join us there, as many of you already do, or on WURD TV. You're watching us at youtube.com/onWURD and facebook.com/4word2. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, executive producer, and also creator of Reality Check, Charles Ellison. You can catch me, if you can, on twitter.com at Ellison Report on twitter.com. Feel free to touch base with us there. Also at the B-Note, the BENote.com. That's the companion magazine, the exclusive companion magazine to Reality Check on WURD. You can subscribe today at THEBENote.com. We also have our inaugural or debut proximity interviews get in the room today. State Senator Kevin Parker is coming on proximity. More information, go to thebnote.com, and also Kevin Ahmad Jenkins. We're going to talk about vaccines and racism as a public health crisis, declaring racism as a public health emergency, public health crisis. You can actually be in the room with them. You can participate in those sessions and talk with them, but you got to go to the B-Note, THEBENote.com, and subscribe first to enter those rooms. Later, actually, State Senator Kevin Parker's today, and Kevin Ahmad Jenkins is tomorrow. So for more information, once again, for the proximity alert, go to THEBENote.com. All right, let's get the show started. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Joining us at the top of this 10 o'clock hour is Sojourner Ahebe. She is Vote Beat reporter. You've been hearing her voice discussing the impact of the 2020 election, what happened, what's happening now in the aftermath. She's Vote Beat reporter assigned to WURD Radio, and she's been joining us here every Wednesday in our midday edition of Reality Check. She joins us by phone. Sojourner, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Charles?
All right. Good morning. So you have been looking very closely, and you've been reporting on how Philadelphia voters responded to the option of mail-in voting and also in-person voting. So let's talk a little bit about that. What do you see in terms of how Philadelphia voters split along those lines? The Philadelphia voters who opted for the mail-in ballot and the Philadelphia voters who did not.
Absolutely. So we saw an unprecedented amount of people opting into mail-in ballots across the country, and the same was true of Philadelphia voters. And of course, we know that if you were a Democrat, you were 3 times more likely to opt in to mail-in voting in Pennsylvania, and that statistic is also a national statistic, so across the country as well. And that really has a lot to do with sort of the smear campaign that Trump and a lot of Republicans were trying to put behind and validating the mail-in, system, and just putting a lot of things in place to make sure that people didn't get their mail efficiently during this election cycle. But yeah, a lot of my reporting actually this week, I focused on sort of the racial disparities of that split. So we know that voters of color tend to vote in person at higher rates than their white counterparts.
Right.
So that was true. We saw that being true in the 2020 primary, where voters of color voted actually more in person and white voters voted more by mail. And we expect that to be true of the 2020 general election. We're just waiting to get, all of that individual race data back.
Okay, got it. So we just need to just get a little bit more, more exploring to see how, what the final, more final numbers would be. Just based on those numbers, but, even with the demographic count showing that black voters less likely to do mail-in balloting, that's just sort of the general assessment here. But do they trust it more, after this 2020 election? Because everything seemed to, for the most part, I mean, there were obviously glitches along the way. There were controversies. There were discrepancies here and there. There was voter suppression. I do recall throughout the year it being a struggle to persuade listeners, to persuade voters, particularly in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I also was involved in efforts with All Voting is Local statewide and moderating and hosting teletown halls throughout the state to thousands of people. And, trying to persuade voters that this is a solid option here. You can do this. So it didn't seem all that encouraging at one point, even during the Pennsylvania primary for mail-in voting. But we came a long way to get to that point. But do they trust it more now? Do you think like this is something that, oh, okay, we saw it can work, so I maybe voters who didn't do it this round, maybe they'll do it the next time?
Yeah, there's a lot of, that's such an interesting question. There's so many different factors. I say that it's split, and it depends on who you talk to. Of course, Black voters are not a monolith, so a lot of people have a lot of different feelings. First and foremost, communities, you know, these are communities that in large part, voters of color, Black voters, you know, they have experience with undependable mail service. So communities that have unreliable government services like mail are not going to depend on mail to elect leaders who can change the quality of their government services. So, of course, that distrust is rooted in actual practices that have been harmful to the Black community and that they haven't been able to depend on for decades. And we also know that mail-in ballots are more likely to not be counted than ballots cast in person. And according to an analysis by the Washington Post, mail-in ballots from voters of color are more likely to be thrown out, almost twice or three times more likely than ballots cast by someone from another race. So there's so many reasons that it could be thrown out, like missing a signature, problem with your envelope. So I think Black voters who don't trust it, they're right not to. They're not like, you know, crazy. These are demonstrated evidence that your vote will not count, will be less likely to count if you cast it by mail. We just know that across the board. But what's interesting is that a lot of the voters that I actually talked to about this issue, Black voters in Philadelphia and throughout the state, said that they actually it wasn't a distrust, but they were coming across a lot of problems in the process that ended up having them, they ended up having to cast their ballot in person anyway after several attempts to try to cast it by mail. I had one gentleman who he works remotely in D.C., but he's a Pennsylvania voter, and sort of splits his time between the state. But he votes here in Pennsylvania, and he tried to apply for a mail-in ballot online, and he couldn't even request one. The system kept saying that his Washington, D.C. address wasn't correct, and it kept correcting it to Washington, Pennsylvania. It was like a glitch in the system. He tried calling weeks at a time. This took about 4 weeks. Him just trying to call people, trying to email, trying to figure out how can I get my ballot. And then it was the weekend before or the week before Election Day, and finally he said, "Wow, I'm going to have to go to Pittsburgh and cast this ballot because it's not going to happen by mail."
Interesting. At Howard, the other thing, and we'd like to hear from you, listeners, Sojourner, she'd like to hear from you as well, and to help enhance her reporting. So feel free to call us now, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. You can also reach out to Sojourner directly, Sahebe, SAHEBEE at wordradio.com, SAHEBEE at wordradio.com, or call her at 267-428-7943. And because she's going to continue this reporting and give us more updates as we talk to her each week. What are elections officials, what are they doing? I'm sure they're aware of these issues that people have. First, the trust gap, and then some of those glitches like the one you just described with mail-in voting. What are election officials doing about that? Like, for example, the city commissioner's office in Philly. One, how are they addressing those glitches? And then two, since we saw that for the most part, mail-in balloting worked, how are they going to expand the mail-in ballot infrastructure? Could Pennsylvania, one day in the very near future, in the next election cycle, look a lot like places like, like Colorado and Oregon?
Right, absolutely. So in sort of conversations with election officials that I've had, what I've been hearing as sort of the, repeating trend is that we want to make, what was so special about this election is that in many ways voting was more accessible than it's ever been because of the vote by mail option. And that's why we saw so many voters who traditionally are left out of the democratic process or don't feel empowered to vote, voting for the first time, voting at unprecedented numbers. So what's been said across the board from election officials is that they want to continue in this trajectory, and they want to offer the option of mail-in, no excuse mail-in voting going forward, because we see that it's effective and it allows more people that traditionally can't vote to vote. And as we know, Governor Tom Wolf passed a bill actually prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. They didn't even know the pandemic was happening when they passed this bill. But that's sort of like, that bill was kind of responsible for why mail-in voting was actually available to Pennsylvania voters this year on this sort of like level, and in such an expanded reach. So that was actually already in place and is in place. And so we can expect this to be more of a normal thing going forward in some of the elections to come. So that's an exciting thing, at least for Pennsylvania voters.
You know, I do wonder, and I don't know if you can answer this question, Sojourner, how Philadelphia elected officials feel about that, and you know, more specifically, the city's Democratic Party machine, right? Because there's always that commentary. You get that from listeners, and you get other people who have been longtime observers of Philadelphia politics, that the elections process in Philadelphia is not as user friendly, or not as accessible, or not as ambitious as as people like myself would like for it to be, because it's sort of by design. It's sort of by, you know, it's just kind of like unofficially set up that way, or it's not that it's voter suppression, but it's sort of designed in such a way that it discourages the kind of high maximum turnout that we need to really put a place like Philadelphia on a path towards change. And so, you know, so in a way, it's and not only that, there's a lot of longtime incumbents in city and regional area politics, people who have been in those seats for a very long time. Suddenly you open up the voting franchise and you got a lot more competition there. You got a lot more scrutiny from constituents. You got new constituents, new blocks of voters who are like, you know what, I don't like this long-time incumbent here. I think I want some new change. So I wonder about that. I wonder about how, like, a lot of long-time local politicos in Philly feel about, like, this new trajectory that the Philly election process, that the Pennsylvania election process is going down.
Absolutely. Well, I haven't had this conversation specifically with elected officials, but I have had it with a lot of good government, local good government organizations in Philadelphia and, you know, throughout the state, like Common Cause. And what they've said, which I think is really important to think about, is even though we had record turnout, we keep talking about unprecedented turnout, unprecedented mail-in ballots cast. Yes, that's true. But when we look at our most vulnerable communities, the turnout really wasn't that record. I mean, we're already kind of seeing, we don't have that individual race data yet here in Pennsylvania, just because of how that data is kept in the state. But what was clear when we were just looking at overall trends is that when we looked at majority Black and Latino wards in Philadelphia, turnout was actually a little flat. And especially compared to 2016 numbers. And that's really important, and it got lost in the overall story of unprecedented, you know, unprecedented turnout in Philadelphia and throughout the nation. And it's an indicator, and something that these good government organizations have said to me, it's an indicator that there is still people that are being left out, and the most vulnerable people we are not centering, and we're not bringing them to the center. They're very much still on the margin. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I know in a lot of Latino wards in Philadelphia, the Biden campaign didn't go out there until very late, and it just expected certain voters to come out for them just because they're Democrats. That's not how it works. You have to put in the work. You have to come out early. You have to make sure you have people who speak Spanish, you know, who are going to meet people where they are. You can't just assume people are going to vote for you just because you're the only option.
Yeah. So I think, you know, there's some room for some disruption there. Sojourner, we have to go to break, but I'm wondering if you got a few minutes after the break, if we can hold on to you.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Let's do that. Phone lines are open. Phone lines have been open. So feel free to call in if you'd like to join in on this discussion, help Sojourner with some of her reporting as a Vote Beat reporter assigned to WURD. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Route. Actually, we got you for a few more minutes until we go to break, Sojourner. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Okay, let's break now, and then we'll still have Sojourner Ehebe who's joining us right now on Reality Check with phone lines open. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Buying something from a dealer just sounds a bit, well, put it like this. My cousin Ray Ray got arrested for buying something from a dealer. So why would you want to buy your car from a dealer? Hi, everybody. This is Nick inviting you to buy your next car from Jerry over at Cardex. See, they're not dealers. They're like a car concierge service. They design a car around you. Almost any make. If it's not on the lot, they'll go out and get it for you. So use My Car Concierge, where I've already bought 4 cars. Cardex at 116 East Glenside Avenue in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Check them out online at cardexinc.com or call Cardex at 215-886-3230.
Hi, this is Jeff Brown from Brown's Family ShopRites and Fresh Grocers. Are you thinking about a part-time job to help out with the cost of the holidays? We have plenty of openings. You can apply online at shoprite.com/careers or freshgrocer.com/careers. Come join the Brown family today and help us serve the people of Philadelphia. Have a great holiday.
Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Keep your dial locked to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media. Want to buy black for the holidays? WURD Radio has got you covered. WURD is proud to present our virtual holiday marketplace online. Support local, small, black-owned businesses through the marketplace and purchase your holiday gifts today. Visit WURDradio.com/marketplace or WURDworks.com/marketplace. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. We're talking to Vote Beat reporter Sojourner Ehebe, and talking about just some assessments, doing a little postmortem analysis of the 2020 elections, especially how everything played out in Philadelphia, which ended up being that very crucial corner in this very crucial battleground state of Pennsylvania. I wanted to talk to you another related issue to this too, Sojourner, going beyond the mail-in voting discussion, is now exit polling. You know, how we're able to see how different demographic groups, voting blocks behaved, or how they operated within that election climate. And so there was a lot of exit polling going on. There's still some controversy about that exit polling, whether or not polling prior to the election was accurate, whether or not even exit polling itself is accurate if we're getting a full, complete counting. And I know that typically the Pew Research Center, Pew Trust, they'll engage in a post-election, every post-election exercise every several years. They'll do this where they verify those voters. So we may even get numbers that are totally different from the immediate exit polling that we have now. But you've been looking at that too, how exit polling was conducted in Philly. What did that look like?
Absolutely. So like you were saying, you just named Pew. There's a few sort of like big players that conduct exit polls, you know, during election cycles. The biggest one that's kind of considered the grandfather of all exit polls is called Edison Media Research. So they conduct all the exit polls and election projections for the 6 like major news organizations, so like ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, and then I think like Associated Press as well. And so really the whole point of or idea behind exit polls is to try to understand what's in the minds of voters when they vote on Election Day. They were originally used to try to understand who was supporting which candidate. You know, there's always been, you know, a few hiccups with exit polls. They're not always perfect. I know in the 2004 election, the Edison poll that I just mentioned seriously overestimated the vote for John Kerry, and that was largely due to the age of the surveyors they sent out, which tend to be younger people. And so it meant that middle-aged and older voters were less comfortable talking to those surveyors in the first place. And so it was so skewed because they were talking mostly to young people coming out and ignoring this whole other segment of the population, which made it look like, you know, Kerry was going to win, which obviously we know did not happen. So, yeah, that's just an example of some of the issues that exist. They fixed that in the future, and they, you know, got more representative surveyors, so that's not much of a, you know, problem now. But it's an interesting thing to think about in terms of, like, who's included in the process of that data collection and who's coming into a community.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, like on that question of who's included in that process. Before we get into that, let me just bring on listener Woody out of Winfield is calling in for a reality check, wants to participate in our discussion with Sojourner Ahebe here, Vote Beat reporter for WURD. Woody, what's up?
Hey, man, just thank you for following up on this issue. Mr. Sojourner, the last time we talked, I think I was sharing with you about the poverty and the illiteracy in our city, and how, in fact, they changed that straight ticket situation. Did you ever look into that? And also the mailing in, you said less people mailed in. Well, again, if you are a slow reader or can't read at all, you're trying to wait to the last minute to find out from as many friends as you possibly can what you have to do, or don't go in at all. Now, one young lady worked at the polls. I think I told you about that. She said that she cried because this young man came in. He was in his 30s, and he told her, I want to vote against Trump. Can you help me? I can't read. And she helped him, and after she left, she even called in, I think, after the program to share with a couple of people what had happened. So this isn't just one person. These are people that statistically, again, we're number one in poverty in the whole nation. Our schools are down to 0%. What are we going to do now, Sojourner, as it relates to trying to educate or bring these machines into, whether it's barbershops like I had it in January, or wherever after this COVID thing is over? It needs to be a continuum of trying to get people to learn to read so that they can exercise their First Amendment right to express themselves in voting.
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually did the story last week. You can find it on the WURD website. We profiled a low literacy voter and sort of like told her story. And yeah, there's actually a lot of really, really great organizations in the city that are actually already doing that work. Shout out to the Center for Literacy, the Community Learning Center. Philadelphia, through their Office of Children and Families, actually has an adult education services office. So the city's aware that this is a problem. The need is obviously just unprecedented. We already know that over 500,000, adult learners are struggling to read and write in the city. So the capacity is just, unprecedented, but it's definitely an issue that we're going to keep our eye on and that we've reported on already.
No, thanks for that. Thanks for that question, Woody. I really appreciate that. And, definitely something we're going to continue to follow up on, that literacy question. I wanted to ask you just real quick, Sojourner, before we let you go, about that exit polling issue, about just polling in general, about who's included in that process, because that's really important. Because I've been having that discussion. We had like an hour-long segment. We had posters that we have as regulars here on Reality Check WURD, Stefan Hankin and also Justin Wallen. And there's a need for diversity in that space. There's not a whole lot of it, if any of it. Stefan Hankin, I think, is like one of kind of the few out there, and a few others, a few notables in terms of that diversity in that space. And we partner up with him regularly. But how does that look in Philly? Because I even, when for example, I had a bit of an exchange on Twitter one time right before the election with the gentleman who runs 66 wards, which does this ballot tracking and ballot counting of Philly wards and kind of gives an estimate. It's not exit polling exactly, but in some ways it operates like that. And he was complaining on Twitter. He's like, you know what, I'm getting low response rates because he has to rely on response rates or volunteer response rates from people and throughout the city in order for him to give a tabulation. And most of the time he's pretty much on the mark, 66wards.com, and we use him, we cite him here on this program. But he was complaining on Twitter. He's like, I'm getting low response rates from like North Philly or places like that. You know, it's mostly those majority black wards. I'm like, well, you know, I've always reached out to you to do outreach with us here on this program. And, you know, typically he said, you know, he's afraid to come on the program and talk about it. But
Right.
I'm like, you know, why don't you partner up with WURD and you could get the word out and more people could know, because most black people don't know who you are.
Exactly.
You know, like, I mean, so, you know, therein lies your problem. And he couldn't disagree. He's like, you know what, I probably should, touche. And so
Right.
it's like this constant problem with polling. Like we go through this discussion every election cycle where it's like, oops, it's like they can't say oops anymore because, hey, we've talked to you about this. You got to be a lot more inclusive in this polling exercise, and they just refuse to do it.
Right, and transparent. Like, people need to know, like, who's doing this, because it can't be done extractively, and we just need to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely need to know. And, you know, and how the transparency in the process would be essential here. It would be helpful because, you know, then there's the methodology in polling. And because I hear that all the
Right.
time. I hear that from family members, from listeners, from just people in the neighborhood who are like, I never get those polling calls. A lot of black people talk about that. They're like, what black people they talk to? Because they didn't talk to
Right.
me. And so there's the methodology. There's one, you know, a lot of black people don't trust picking up the phone. I mean, there's a lot of people just don't trust picking up their phone from weird numbers nowadays in the first place, especially with phishing and telemarketers and creditors, bill
Exactly.
collectors, and things of that sort. So you have to take that into consideration, especially during a time like this. And, you know, so what are some other more user-friendly ways? What are ways you can partner up with community organizations, civic groups, grassroots folks to make sure that this polling is a lot more accurate?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually talking with political science scientists at UPenn about this, and they actually have a different method that doesn't involve exit polling. It's this process because, in Pennsylvania, voter registration records do not include any individual level data on race. So that means individual counties in the state cannot provide exact race-specific breakdowns about turnout. And so that's why we're seeing in a lot of our local reporting, you know, people making these conjectures or looking at, you know, racial demographic of wards and then trying to make, you know, a statement about black turnout or Latino turnout. So the professor at UPenn was saying they actually use poll books to figure out what the racial turnout was. So when you sign your poll book at your voting location, you know, to indicate who you say you are, eventually all that information from that poll book gets transferred into an electronic database that shows which people within the city showed up to vote within a given location. And apparently there's a lot of information about people's race or ethnicity that's contained in the location where they live and their last name. So what the political scientists do once all the poll books are scanned into the system, you know, 4 to 6 weeks after an election, they get all that data and then they apply a statistical model that kind of combines local census data of that geographic area with information on the voter's last name to make judgments on individual level likelihood that that voter was, say, black, white, Latino. And it's not always, you know, a perfect method. Sometimes it comes back with, like, this person is 75% chance of being white and 25% chance of, like, being something else. So individually it's kind of a little wonky. But once you aggregate all that information across all the registrants in Philadelphia, you can get some sense of what voter turnout looked like by race. And you're not leaving anyone out, and you're also not doing anything in an extractive way that involves, you know, maybe being in somebody's space that doesn't want you in their space, because we know there's a lot of concerns about that, especially as a voter of color when you go out, you know, voter intimidation, violence on Election Day. Maybe you don't want to be talking to people on Election Day, and that's completely understandable. So at least with this process, you don't have to go through that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Let me go to Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties is calling in for a reality check. Sister Murray?
Hi, Charles. How are you? Good morning.
How you doing? All right.
By the way, your show is excellent. Each day, you've had a great show on there.
Thank you.
I would like to share with the young lady that's on the phone with you. I feel as though because everything was so new, and we thought we couldn't get through this, but we did. And I don't think we should ever personally go back to the way we used to vote. What is the comfort in your own home, your own privacy, filling out your paperwork and getting it done, but not waiting to the last minute, like the day before or a week before it's time for it to get done. Now that we have gone through all of this, and now that we know, I think it should be a part of a curriculum in the high school. They should already be prepared by the time they turn 18 to be able to vote, or whatever the age is to vote. They should be prepared, know how to fill out the paperwork, just like the curriculum, like cooking, sewing, home ec, all those things that they used to have in school. They should prepare these kids. So now that we know, we can get ahead of this, and when we go back to school, as soon as this virus is get a control over it, I feel as though that should be definitely a part of the school curriculum. Thank you so much, Charles, for sharing that. And I would like to know how you both feel about that.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. I think so. I mean, I'm all about, embedding as much civic literacy and, teaching young people about the election process, about the civic participatory process as much as possible. And it should be like mandatory pretty much and baked into like the DNA of especially a school system like Philadelphia. I mean, since we're on literacy, and I've been talking about for a while, no one's taken me up on the offer yet, at least in Philly, making Philly the first big city where they lower the voting age to 16 at one last time, just lower it one last time. I don't think it should be any lower than 16, but I really do truly think that, especially for a troubled school system like Philadelphia, and I know I'm going off on a little rant here, but just to put that out there, maybe kind of get people stirred up this morning, we need to lower the voting age to 16. I mean, if you really want to start fixing Philly schools and getting policymakers to get more responsive to that, and to do things like getting new superintendents, get the kids who are living through the hell of this school system, at least at that sophomore to senior year, to be able to vote locally, and to be able to respond in a concerted way to these issues. That's just my op-ed for the morning there. But go ahead, respond to what Sister Murray was saying, Sojourner.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything you're saying and everything Sister Mary was saying. I mean, I'm a product of Philadelphia schools. Went to school here all my life, and when I think back to my own civic education here in the city, I didn't really have any unit on voting until late into high school, and that's just so late. It needs to be happening so much earlier than that, and it needs to be thorough and expansive. I don't think it's too much to ask to start doing it in elementary. Those kids are capable, and we should be talking about it, as early as we can.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And, because it's funny, even as I was growing up and going through Philadelphia public schools for part of my younger life, and the schools I was going to, they would set up polling machines at those schools. And, the kids are running around and we're wondering, oh, what's this? And the teacher's not really explaining it.
Wow,
I mean, some teachers would, oh, well, we have an election coming up. And they would take advantage of that opportunity moment, but it wasn't an official thing. It wasn't like the school or the school system saying, hey, since we have these polling machines in these schools, let's use this as an opportunity. Let's bake this into the curriculum to teach these young people. It didn't dawn on people to make that like an automatic thing. Okay, every election cycle, we're going to have special classes, or we're going to somehow make an interactive thing out of this where we include the young people in setting up these machines or showing how it's set up. It just didn't dawn on people. They didn't make that connection, which was just really stunning. And still to this day, making that same mistake.
Absolutely. That seems like it would have been such a great opportunity, especially because the voting process is literally happening within the space.
Exactly. I mean, and that's how I got into voting. That's why I love voting. I love politics and participatory politics so much. Is just because since I was a toddler, since I could remember, 3-4 years old, my grandmother taking me to the polling booth with her every election cycle and letting me pull the lever, letting me point out the names. Hey, who are those? And then, kind of schooling me as I got older and I was able to read. Hey, learn more about these candidates. Hey, Charles, read about these candidates. I want you to read the newspaper, pick up the Daily News and the Enquirer and see what you can find about these people who are running for office. And then when we go to the polling location, then as I got older and, they closed that curtain. She's like, okay, you go ahead and pick out who you think should be. You did the research for me. You pick out who you think should be the best candidate, who should be president, who should be senator or congressman or mayor or whomever. So I was kind of like low key. I wasn't supposed to be, but she would hold me while I do it. She said, don't tell anybody, but go ahead and pull the lever. So I don't even know if I should be saying that out loud, but it was just a fun exercise, and that honestly, that right there cemented that commitment to that process, or knowing it. And I just feel like the schools could be doing this. I felt like I shouldn't have been the only one to have had those kinds of special moments. I think every child, every young person in Philadelphia should have that kind of civic mentorship, if you will. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much. We did have also another listener on Twitter reached out and was saying, voting is private. Why would you believe what a person tells who they voted for? That's at Nike Odom, which is a good point. It is a very private affair. And so, we shouldn't expect people to tell us who they voted for. And then as far as that exit polling question, there could be people out there lying. Sojourner, just final thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, in Pennsylvania, we're one of the states where we literally have a right to a secret ballot. That's why it's really so hard to get that race, that individual race level data, because once the ballot is cast, there really should not be any way for you to track who that person was. That's written into law, like Pennsylvania law. So we're sort of going around, the system to get all of these other numbers. Obviously, it's important to have this data because it tells us a lot of really important information about, communities that are being left out. For instance, we can tell by turnout, okay, well, there is some kind of racial disparity happening here because the turnout isn't as much as the people who are representative within a certain space. So I do think it's important to have the information, but it's a good point about what you can trust when you're out there exit polling. I know one thing the political scientist had said was that this year Republicans were probably less likely to either respond to surveyors at all or respond accurately or honestly, because they had a distrust of universities and research and just through all of the stuff that we've been seeing with the Trump campaign and invalidating mail-in ballots, invalidating research, invalidating facts. They were probably less likely to talk to surveyors because these are people that were representative of organizations that, are all about those values.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sojourner Ehebe is Vote Be reporter for WURD. She's been joining us for an extended hour here, or an extended second segment here on the top of our 10 o'clock hour here on Reality Check midweek. Thanks so much, Sojourner. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for that reporting and the insights. Okay, let's take a break, and phone lines are still open. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. We'll be right back.
Seniors, does your doctor regularly reach out to check on you? Can you walk into your doctor's office and see them if you need to? Do you have your doctor's cell phone number, and can you call them anytime, day or night? At Dedicated Senior Medical Center, their only specialty is caring for seniors. Dedicated makes it easy to get the primary care you deserve. Doctors spend more time with patients than the doctors you may be used to. They offer telehealth visits, help you get your medications, and even make sure you get to your appointments. If your doctor isn't treating you like family, it's time to say yes to Dedicated Senior Medical Center. Call Dedicated Senior Medical Center today to schedule a visit and find out what you're missing. Call 267-443-1900. That's 267-443-1900. Appointments are available now.
Have you heard about City Council's plan to build more affordable housing, repair existing homes, create jobs, and support small business? The Neighborhood Preservation Initiative will invest $400 million in Philly communities. Read about it at www.phlcouncil.com/NPI.
Solutions on WURD. Hosted by Dwayne Royster and Amadi Braxton. Solutions on WURD. Exploring solutions to national, state, and local issues through the lens of race and gender. Solutions on WURD. Fridays 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. Exclusively on WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Solutions is sponsored by Power Interfaith Movement, working towards life, liberty, and democracy for all.
Tune in this Saturday at 10 a.m. for the Educational Pulse with the School District of Philadelphia with host Dr. William Haidt.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll-free 866-361-0900. Also, don't forget to do your holiday shopping if you'd like to buy from black businesses. Also support black businesses during these holidays and during this really tough time called pandemic, which has been hitting black businesses very hard. Black businesses, the most likely to shutter during pandemic, as far as the data shows us. But there is an opportunity to do that through WURD Radio, through our holiday exchange. You can find that at WURDradio.com/marketplace. We got our holiday marketplace already set up. WURDradio.com/marketplace and WURD Radio or WURDworks.com, /marketplace as well. You can buy your holiday gifts from black-owned businesses, from local black-owned businesses in particular. Of course, we carry on that tradition. That's part of the WURD mission, and we do that always in person each year with our holiday extravaganza. Obviously, we cannot do that due to pandemic. Got to keep it safe and got to keep the social distance going and try to get everyone through this. But we've got you covered. We've got a virtual holiday marketplace where people can buy black. Go to WURDradio.com/marketplace or WURDworks.com/marketplace as well. And really appreciate that. And I'm sure those businesses will appreciate that too. And they are there to provide optimal customer service and get those gifts to you for the holiday season. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Also, some of you may heard that the Supreme Court yesterday denying a petition from a Republican congressman here in Pennsylvania to overturn the election results in Pennsylvania. So, once again, just one more formality, essentially cementing the presidential election. Pretty much we have December 14th. We've got several days. Key dates to look out for, obviously December 11th, that's this Friday, avoiding a federal government shutdown. So it seems like there are promising signs. It seems like the compromise for the $908 billion in pandemic relief or stimulus funding, that seems like it's going to go through. Had some promising developments yesterday. That'll be the start of what's expected to be more robust pandemic stimulus funding at the start of the Biden administration next year. But this is sort of bridge funding. And two, just encouraging signs. At the moment, we don't know, because President Trump is always the wild card. We don't know where his head is at typically, but at the moment it seems Congress will be able to avoid a government shutdown by Friday, December 11th. But we'll see. Let's just stay tentative and stand by on that. And December 14th, next Monday, is the date where the Electoral College will officially certify the election to Joe Biden. No indications there that anything different will happen. And we already had the Supreme Court yesterday denying this last-ditch effort by Congressman Mark Kelly, Pennsylvania, Northeast Representative District in Northeast Pennsylvania. I think in Butler, PA, is the main city there that he represents. But he was trying to overturn the election results in Pennsylvania. Supreme Court said nope. It was a very brief order, very terse. In fact, Trump's latest Supreme Court Justice nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, she joined in on that case. So they didn't even provide any reasoning. There were no dissenting votes. They were just like, we just don't want to go through this. So there is one other lawsuit by the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton. He filed a complaint asking the Supreme Court to overturn Biden wins in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia. He's Texas Attorney General. He's busy, sort of digging his nose into Pennsylvania, Michigan, into other states and trying to overturn their election results. So he submitted a petition to the Supreme Court. The expectation is that's pretty much a long shot, and Supreme Court will also snap back against that. Also in other news, lots of rumblings on Capitol Hill and in media about the selection of or the nomination of retired four-star General Lloyd Austin to be Secretary of Defense. Lloyd Austin would be the first black Secretary of Defense, and suddenly there's a lot of grumbling about that because he is a former retired general, and former retired generals who are being nominated for that position within 7 years of retiring have to get a waiver for it because typically the law stipulates that you want a civilian for that position. You want a civilian-run Defense Department rather than a Defense Department that's run by military brass or former military brass. They have to at least have gone past the 7-year mark after their retirement in order to not have to go through the waiver process. But it's a very simple waiver. But in fact, Donald Trump, when he nominated former retired Marine General, former retired 4-star Marine General Jim Mattis as Defense Secretary, they gave Mattis the waiver. The expectation is that Austin will end up with the waiver, but there's a lot of public grumbling about this. And you don't want to say automatically all the time it's because Lloyd Austin is black, but in this particular case, yeah, you want to say it's because Lloyd Austin is black, because I just don't recall, and maybe folks, feel free to kind of either touch base with me on Twitter and help my recollection there, or call here and let me know if there was like this big of a public outcry about the need about not nominating a general or a former retired general for Defense Secretary when Trump nominated Mattis. I just don't remember this outcry. I don't remember the level of outcry. I'm seeing like multiple op-eds from major magazines, New York Times, Washington Post. I think I saw another op-ed on CNN. Everyone's saying you shouldn't nominate a general, shouldn't be a general. It's like, this wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, I think that there were like, I checked, there were just a few musings, few intellectual or academic musings here and there about, oh, Jim Mattis, oh, you know what, he's a retired general. He has to get that waiver. Not sure if we want a general running the Defense Department, but okay, go ahead and let him do it. Now it's like all this, and even within Democrats who are like, oh, I don't know if we want him running the Defense Department, and you should have picked the white girl, Michelle Flournoy. So that conversation is taking place right now because they were hoping that a woman would have run the Defense Department. So there's this classic battle between like the black man who's been nominated and the white woman who was up for it. This was the third time her name was put in the mix to be Defense Secretary, and it's not, for some reason, like she's not getting picked. It could be something that they've already vetted that could be there that may be preventing her from being nominated, that just folks don't want to talk about, because that situation is always there. Remember, all these nominees, these potential nominees, they have to go through a very thorough vetting and background check or background process or background investigative process. And so if there are controversial or interesting things that show up in their political or personal life, president-elects have the option, can easily exercise the option not to push that nomination forward. And so we've seen in the past some potential nominees come up who look on paper and in terms of the public discourse and conversation, look stellar, look perfect for that position, but they never get picked. But there's always a reason for that. Remember, there's always a reason for that because they all get vetted. So they can have something in their personal lives we don't know about. But once they get to that Senate confirmation hearing point, all that stuff comes out. So the senators are sifting through that information once they get them to the next stage, which is the Senate confirmation hearings. And once the senators have it, you better hope, if you're getting nominated, you better hope there's nothing embarrassing there. You don't know. That could be the reason why they haven't picked Michelle Flournoy. So it's just very interesting and fascinating to kind of watch like this big conversation. Now it's such a big deal that, and I understand, I do understand, you want to be careful not to have military brass running a civilian cabinet post. You should have a civilian, but Lloyd Austin is a civilian. He's retired. And he's highly qualified. And, so of course we're going to have that. Of course we predicted that commentary for something as powerful and significant as Defense Secretary. and he's going to be the first black one. Of course, we were bracing for the commentary about how he can't do the job. So there you have it. So that's the latest debate that's happening on and off Capitol Hill as we watch things unfold in Washington, D.C. And we will be doing that regularly on Reality Check, because as you know, we're in the nation's capital too. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're heading into the 11 o'clock hour, and we're going to have a discussion about New Jersey utility PSE&G targeting a historically black community over there in New Jersey and Lawnside, New Jersey. They've been, seems like they've been violating folks' environmental rights, at least according to the experts we're going to bring on. So we're heading into an EcoWord segment. I'm going to talk about some environmental justice issues unfolding in New Jersey here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
With Internet Essentials from Comcast for only $9.95 a month, you get more. High-speed home internet service included. Peace of mind with XFi Advanced Security included. Access to millions of XFi Wi-Fi hotspots, that's included too. Internet Essentials from Comcast brings you affordable, high-speed internet to your home for only $9.95 a month. When you're connected, you're ready for anything. Visit InternetEssentials.com for more information. Taxes extra. Restrictions apply.
Jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
At Champion Dentistry, we want to make sure your smile is as healthy as it is beautiful. Whether you're calling for a routine checkup, calling about a newly developed toothache, or interested in learning about cosmetic dentistry options. Our services include routine checkups, cosmetic dentistry, gum care, laser dentistry, and more. Champion Dentistry is in the Overbrook Farm section of the city, easily reachable by public transportation. Call 215-473-4717 to schedule an appointment today, or visit championdentistry.org, the House of Smiles.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, to learn more about EcoWord, our environmental justice journalism initiative, go to EcoWord.com, and we do regular segments here. We always have that environmental justice discussion here pretty much daily on Reality Check. Heading into another EcoWord segment, we're talking with, joining me by Skype, you can see him on WURD TV, is Russell Zerbo. He's an advocate, environmental justice advocate, also heads up things, leads things at the Clean Air Council, works focused on the region or issues unfolding in the region. And joining us by phone, I understand, is Sharon Whitney, whom he's partnered up with on this particular issue we're going to talk about today, also an environmental justice advocate, works with the Clean Air Council. They're both joining us here on Reality Check during EcoWord. How are you both? Sharon, I hope you can hear me too.
Yes, good morning.
All right, good morning, good morning. All right, thanks so much, and thank you, Russell, too, for joining us. So I'll start with you, Sharon, and Russell, feel free to jump in, because I want people to sort of get this is a very complex situation, but at its core, I mean, it is about essentially a major energy utility in a state like New Jersey building an electrical substation, getting the land prepared for some industrial use in a community that's black without the community's permission. Just basically doing this without checking in with the community. It's a majority black community, Lawnside, New Jersey, and they're doing this building. There's some real serious and critical environmental hazards that comes along with this building, some real serious pollution that can take place as a result of this. Explain this situation here, lay it out for us. Sharon, I'll start with you. Why this has suddenly become a flashpoint.
Okay. As you know, most people have visited Lawnside for their barbecue and their entertainment. But Lawnside was a safe haven for runaway slaves, and hence the runaway slaves developed this community. That's why it's an underground railroad stop, and that's why it's so important. Well, PSE&G already had a power station or substation here in Lawnside, but they wanted to expand to accommodate 3 other communities. Now, in the expansion, they sent people a notice that were within 200 feet of this facility. So we had a meeting, and they're saying, okay, we're going to do this. So we had specific questions, like the sound pollution, how they're going to remove asbestos, how they're going to address flooding, which Russell can expertly discuss, and the design of the retention basins. They're using sulfur hexafluoride to cool as a coolant for their equipment that they use, and electromagnetic fields. Now, they're poo-pooing it and saying, oh, these are just minor problems, but they are not. So that's why I'm bringing attention to Lawnside.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Russell, expound on that, because that sounds serious, and it's like PSEG, the largest energy utility in New Jersey. It didn't seem like they did a whole lot of due diligence or really had a deep conversation with Lawnside residents about, okay, this is what the environmental impact looks like. First, this is why we need to do this. And then 2, this is what the environmental and public health impact is going to look like. Because it sounds like those chemicals are very dangerous and can create all sorts of public health risks to residents who are nearby.
Well, I think you could say that PSE&G did do their due diligence in the attempt to, target a community to overburden them. Like you're saying, Charles, like this is a substation that's going to have usage, in the entire region, but a few select households in Lawnside are going to be directly abutting it in their residentially zoned neighborhood. They didn't buy their homes with the intention of living next to a substation that is going to have large regional benefits and could be placed in a variety of locations. I haven't heard a good justification from PSEG about why exactly this needs to go where it is going. And the flooding and stormwater issues are sort of a broader topic to discuss, but the sulfur hexafluoride is specific and interesting in that it is it insulates electricity, which makes sense that you would want to use it on a substation, but it is also the most powerful greenhouse gas on the planet. So much more than carbon dioxide, methane. The reflective capability of it is in the triple, if not quadruple digits. And it's a really tough regulatory situation. Like I work in permits and regulatory situations. And because the SF6 is the chemical name for it, because that is never supposed to leave the tubes, like it's an insulator, it's not being proposed as an emission that's going to come out of a smokestack. They actually don't have to report it in the same way that you normally would to the State Department of Environmental Protection. So they really don't have to go through many hoops to use this very intense chemical. And I've been doing some research, and very large companies are using just pure compressed air to do the same thing. And it's like, just regular air versus the most potent greenhouse gas on the planet.
Have you told, PSEG this? Has PSEG been made aware that there are like other alternatives, there are other ways of doing this or going about this if they really truly need this substation?
Yeah,
they're aware. Ms. Sharon, did you want to?
Go ahead, Ms. Sharon. Did you want to?
No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, they're aware of the alternatives. The alternatives are more expensive.
Right.
And this is kind of, I mean, this is the old way of doing business. And this is actually a really good segue into the stormwater conversation, because that's the same situation. Like, climate change is happening.
Right.
Storms are getting more intense, but we're all using precipitation predictions from 1980. So there's just an incredible need to update the numbers for the amount of rain that happens.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
And yeah, Russell, too, before you go on, and like Sharon, I'd like to get your perspective on that to start that stormwater conversation, because building the substation and explain it, Sharon, break it down, and then Russell, you can expound on it. Building it, okay, and correct me if I'm wrong here. Building that substation would actually intensify, or it would make a lot of the flooding that's already occurring in that area, and in a state like New Jersey, being a coastal state, it would make it worse. And would make it worse for those communities. Is that about right, Sharon?
That's correct. They're cutting down all the trees, and it's heavily wooded right now. And some residents are still experiencing flooding. Once they cut it down, where's that rainwater going to go? Russell explained to me that we go through periods of dry spells and then immense rainfall. So all of that dirt that was dry is going to wash away. Is it going to erode, and where does it go? In people's backyards.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people, just for listeners too, and we talked about that before here on this. We don't talk about it enough here on this program, but just the importance of, like, for example, having trees. Something as important as trees, and we're dealing with a lot of flooding, especially in cities like Philadelphia. We're seeing a lot of flooding in Southeast PA and New Jersey. The flooding is accelerating. The less trees you have, the less infrastructure, natural ecological infrastructure you have to soak up that water. That's just so important, to have those trees to soak up that water. And then you're going to, and the people who get hit the hardest disproportionately, at least when I look at the data in a place like Philly, I've seen this for Philly, I haven't looked at Jersey specifically, and Russell, you can kind of step in with this, is that the people who get disproportionately hit the hardest by that flooding and then end up getting displaced, and I grew up with this in North Philly with a lot of flooding in the basement, are black people, are black and brown communities. But go ahead, Russell.
Well, absolutely. I mean, as Ms. Sharon was saying, I mean, Lawnside is a historically black community with immense cultural significance. But to look at it from the exact stormwater perspective, and yes, exactly like you're saying, I mean, the forest and trees are the absolute best stormwater management technique. That is full stop. So I find myself engaging in these really absurd conversations where people want to cut down trees and then implement stormwater management technologies, and it's like you just got rid of the most innovative technology available. But to get but to get into the specifics of their proposal, they it's almost a full new acre of impervious area, land that doesn't drain. It's exactly 0.83, and the issue that I brought up in our appeal of the zoning decision, and that's one of the really complicated, I was going to mention that earlier. So right now we're dealing with the zoning decision, but the zoning board of Lawnside doesn't really do stormwater permits. So there's some intersecting governmental bodies. The stormwater permit is given by the state, so it's not exactly tied in with the zoning approval. But the big thing that I'm pointing out about the rainwater is that NJDEP is currently, that's sort of the Environmental Protection Agency in New Jersey. The threshold, if you want to add an acre of impervious area, 0.83 acres, is a 1.25 inch rainfall event over 2 hours. But then if you do your research, you'll see that in the last 2 years in Camden County, where Lawnside is, they've gotten 2 4-inch 24-hour storms. Just in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
They've gotten two of these very large storms. So that's very different than 1¼ inches over 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's Sharon, to just kind of give you some more perspective on kind of like what you've been dealing with the beyond the PSEG conversation, but what you've been dealing with in terms of flooding as a Lawnside resident and other Lawnside residents. I mean, that's becoming a constant reoccurring theme and problem. And also, Sharon, what's the state of New Jersey saying about this? Because it sounds like PSEG is violating environmental law or state environmental law, or at least recent environmental law that's been put in place to guard against this type of activity, right? So, I mean, is the state or a state regulator stepping in to help out here?
Well, Governor Murphy passed, he signed in the order 2 executive orders, Executive Order 89 and Executive Order 100, that's supposed to address the emissions and deforestation. But I guess PSE&G has some serious power because they disregarded both of these orders.
So I get what's the issue with that, Russell? I mean, what the executive orders don't apply to PSEG? Is there some kind of loophole that we're not aware of, that the Lawnside community is not aware of?
No, I wouldn't call it a loophole. It's really tough, particularly the environmental justice legislation that I absolutely applaud the state of New Jersey for passing. I mean, this is like innovative, first in the nation legislation. People don't realize that those bills basically require someone to sue the state in order to be enforced. I mean, that's why bills like that they're not written to actively be enforced. Mm-hmm. They're written so that an outside lawyer, after the fact, can come in and go, you guys violated your own law with this case. And that's something that's, absolutely widespread in sort of the history of environmental policy. It's something that Clean Air Council has done countless times, suing various governments to follow their own laws. Mm-hmm. And I would, the environmental justice law I would definitely say is in that category. And I would say that the new climate resiliency preparations, it just takes a while for that. Like, that's kind of one of the confusions about just policy in general is, the state can be looking at rain records from 1980 and then have this new legislation that says that we all need to have the most innovative climate policy. So there's a lot of catching up to be done.
Yeah. Is that kind of the next strategy here, or is that what's happening right now? Like, you all are, and Sharon, feel free to step in here with your perspective on, you all are teaming up to file that lawsuit. Has a lawsuit been filed by Lawnside?
No, they're not Clean Air Council. There has been an appeal of the zoning decision. Ms. Sharon, did you have a...
No, go ahead, Russell. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there has been appeal of the local zoning decision. And Ms. Sharon, I don't believe there's been an actual decision made about that. But one of the, the actual stormwater permit for the fully completed site hasn't even been proposed yet. Okay. So in the future, I hope to assist Lawnside residents in commenting on that permit to the state, maybe requesting a public hearing.
Is this is sort of the normal modus operandi, as they call it, Russell, Sharon, for PSE&G on projects like these? Is Lawnside the only case here in a state like New Jersey where we've seen something like this happen? I would suspect that it's common practice, but it's something that we just ended up noticing, and it's just so blatant in Lawnside that we have an opportunity here to start some awareness around it and to also reverse this kind of decision, this kind of activity.
There are numerous cases in New Jersey where PSE&G just runs roughshod through a neighborhood, especially if they figure you can't afford to fight back. Newark is a prime case. There's case after case where PSE&G has power. And that's the first thing they tell you. It's one of the most powerful corporations in the United States. How are you going to win?
Yeah, Russell?
Well, to be honest, yeah, and I don't want to speak for NJ Appleseed, which is the group that filed the zoning appeal of the appeal for us. But I believe they took the case because they had a similar case in Newark, New Jersey, which is also a community of color. But I would put this beyond PSE&G in sort of, when anybody proposes a new development, kind of stormwater permits are the last thing to be considered. And PSEG and these substation proposals, they have a lot sort of going for them in terms of, compliance with the law, because even though we think there's a lot of things coming out of this facility, on paper, there's really not. Electromagnetic waves or fields aren't really regulated by governments. There's a lot of local concern, but it's not really a concern in terms of the law. Like we were saying, that sulfur hexafluoride doesn't technically get emitted, and PSEG is, a pseudo public entity.
Yeah.
And everybody uses electricity. So there's a lot of, people use that like not in my backyard kind of perspective to try to quell community opposition. But from my perspective, whose backyard am I going to care about?
Right. I would assume too, and that's the thing. That's the future now of not just companies, corporations, utilities like PSEG becoming much more socially conscious, but it helps with their business model to, as you just said, Russell, to comply with the law, to comply with a more sustainable and clean energy or environmentally aware way to do things, to operate, to do business, right? Because I would think, okay, like you're building these substations, you're doing it in total ignorance of right now, I'm just kind of hypothetically thinking here and just trying to break this down pragmatically for the conversation, but you want to build this substation, you force it on this community, but then, or a series of substations, you're creating this whole new infrastructure to expand electricity, but you're going to have to constantly come back and spend money to repair that substation because of all the flooding that's happening around it, right? Because you didn't want to follow the law, you didn't want to follow the guidelines for flood mitigation. You also have to then suddenly, if the pollution is happening, if people get hurt, we suddenly find high rates of cancer or some chronic disease that happens as a result of the chemicals that are used for that substation. Then you got to spend money on lawsuits, spend money on liability, spend money on potential on reparations for that community. It's just so much that it really doesn't, near term and long term, to me, at least in my mind, it doesn't work for your bottom line. If I'm coming from the perspective of an energy utility, I'm thinking like, okay, I want to maximize my bottom line. Why do I want to create a headache for myself, a future headache for myself? Right? Don't you see it that way? You feel that way too, Sharon? It's kind of like there's the altruistic case, the socially conscious. Hey, you shouldn't do this, and just do this because we're a vulnerable, working middle class or low income Black community, and you feel like you can just run roughshod over us. But hey, PSEG, this is also for your benefit. This eats away at your bottom line. Sharon, go ahead.
That makes absolute sense. And all we're saying is that make sure that what you do, what you implement, is safe for us as a community. Don't, just ignore us or say that, oh, there's no government regulation on that. Because just like Flint, just like, cigarettes, you're implementing things, and then in the long run, you got to backtrack and say, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry's not going to work.
Yeah. Go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, well, I will push back on some of those things because it's almost even more complex in terms of the stormwater. PSE&G is actually following the law, the law itself is just very lax.
Mm.
The state of New Jersey has not updated their storm estimates in quite some time. So yes, the very low storm estimate being used is what the state is currently abiding by. So that's why we're trying to invoke this new environmental justice legislation that, I mean, most simply, it's just, give us a little bit of extra. That's kind of what environmental justice means, is that, we're exploited because we're low-income minority areas, so give us added protection.
Yeah.
That is what that is supposed to mean. And I'll tell you about the idea of the flooding of their site, which is one of my real problems. We're going over this with the Philadelphia refinery right now. They are proposing to raise the site out of the floodplain, which would take care of all their permitting requirements, but it would literally force water into the surrounding community. So, and I think the same thing applies for the substation expansion. Like, the substation is going to be fine in the rain. They're pushing all that water into the neighborhood.
That's what, yeah. But then, if someone is able to, like, through those lawsuits, through that advocacy, is able to make that direct link or establish that direct linkage between the building of those substations and the flooding of that community, once again, it's like in the long run, it's not working out for anyone. It's not working out for the community. It's not going to work out for PSEG. So you're absolutely right, Russell. There's that policy imperative that has to work too. I have to let you both go, but please keep us updated. I welcome you back to talk to us about what's happening there in Lawnside and elsewhere in New Jersey. I guess it's a real serious issue. We've been tweeting about it too. So the PSEG, they now know that there's a conversation on a major radio station about it. We're going to kind of blow up their spot, and so hopefully you get some response as a result of that too. But I really appreciate this conversation. Best of luck to you, and just keep us updated. Come on back on and talk to us about it. We've been talking with Sharon Whitney, environmental justice advocate, resident in Lawnside, has been working on these issues, partnering up with Russell Zerbo at the Clean Air Council. Go to @CleanAirCouncil, cleanaircouncil.org for more information there, talking about PSG building substations in Lawnside, New Jersey, historically black community, not complying with environmental laws, environmental justice actions that have been even recently taken by the governor there, Governor Phil Murphy in New Jersey. So we're going to keep a close eye on it here at EcoWord. Thanks so much, Russell. Sharon, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, Charles. Bye, Michelle.
All right, good. We'll talk to you again. Okay, let's take a break. Yeah, that's serious, and so we want to just like we do here on Reality Check and through EcoWord as best we can, keep a track of that and put the word out. Let's take a break, and then we're going to talk with LaShonda Brinson at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies about diversity in congressional staffing. That sounds like an obscure issue, but it's very important. Not a whole lot of representation in the staffing in House and Senate offices on Capitol Hill. I happen to know that because I used to work on Capitol Hill a long, long time ago, and there's always been a diversity problem. Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies has been working on that issue, studying it, examining it, and advocating around it for quite some time. So we're going to bring on Shonda Brinson to talk about their latest campaign to fix that. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? I know you know the word, no, not the station, but this word, J-O-B that is, and our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
Have you heard about City Council's plan to build more affordable housing, repair existing homes, create jobs, and support small business? The Neighborhood Preservation Initiative will invest $400 million in Philly communities. Read about it at www.phlcouncil.com/NPI.
Every day, 47.9 million family caregivers perform labors of love by helping their parents and spouses. Family caregivers help their older loved ones with medications, medical care, meals, bathing, dressing, and much more. While they wouldn't have it any other way, they need some support. AARP has information and online communities to help support caregivers. Learn more at aarp.org/caregiving.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back. LaShonda Brinson is at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, Black think tank based in Washington, D.C. Go to jointcenter.org for more information. Also, you can see their latest research, their latest advocacy briefings around the issue of diversity and congressional staffing. And LaShonda is here to talk about it. She actually recently wrote a piece in The Hill, go to thehill.com, where she talks about the importance of needing being more inclusive, being more intentional about inclusion in congressional House and Senate offices. Very important, and I can, talking from personal experience as a former, a long time ago, former Hill staffer, this is just a really important issue that just never seems to get enough attention, but Joint Center has been trying to put attention on it for some time now. LaShonda, how are you doing? Thank you.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
All right, good. I appreciate your time here too. The Joint Center, and you've been a part of this effort, leading it, has launched a recent campaign to pressure incoming and also current lawmakers in the House and Senate to diversify their congressional staff. So let's talk about that campaign, what that's about. Why is that issue important? Because at first glance, right? People would think, well, what does this have to do with me? Why is this such an important issue? Why should I care about the makeup of staff in these Capitol Hill offices? How does that impact me? And so explain.
Oh, sure, yeah. So if you think about Congress, a lot of the work that's being done is usually handled by top staffers in the Senate. So these positions, by top staff, I mean Chief of Staff, Legislative Director, and Communications Director. And so a lot of these folks in these positions really advise members of Congress on different issues. And so if we think about the moment that we're in terms of Americans really wanting another stimulus package, especially in Black communities, Black businesses suffering, Black workers suffering disproportionately, all of these policies work their way through Congress, and members of Congress need diverse staff, particularly Black staff, to advise them on how different legislation that might pass might impact our communities. And so we need folks in these positions to advise members accordingly. No,
it's, people don't understand how important that is. These are very powerful positions, congressional staff. I mean, you even have some congressional staffers who've been on the Hill either for a senior member or a longtime member for a very long time, who have been staffers, head staffers in committees, whether that's like legislative directors, legislative counsel, people who do the investigations. These are very, very powerful positions. And it's just the paucity of Black faces is very telling. I mean, when you walk around Capitol Hill and you see the difference in terms of, you definitely see Black people up there, but they're not in those congressional staffing roles.
Right.
So what's the state of diversity right now, based on what you've all observed and studied at the Joint Center?
Sure. As you mentioned, a lot of Black folks on the Hill, unfortunately, are concentrated in lower level positions. Not that those positions are not important, but we also need folks in top positions. So currently, people of color make up about 40% of the U.S. population. But if we think about top positions in the Senate, those positions are only filled by 11% of people of color, and it's even less for Black top staff. So Black top staff are only about 3% of Senate personal offices. And so if we look also at the House side, the House does a little bit better at 14% of diverse top staff. But if you actually look at who is employing these folks, it's mostly Congressional Black Caucus members, right? And so if we remove those members from the count, actually white Republicans and Democrats look very much similar, actually, in terms of the lack of diversity. And so that percentage drops down to about 7%. And so there definitely is a need to diversify both for Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, no, and we know, well, we know like which party is more responsive to that conversation about diversity, don't we? I mean, we know the answer to this question that Republicans are not really good at this.
But Democrats aren't either, especially if you look at the disparate number of African Americans who vote Democratic. So the Democrats still have a ways to go, especially in certain states. So if we look at Maryland, who has 2 Democratic senators, if we look at Delaware, who has 2 Democratic senators, if we look at Virginia, who has 2 Democratic senators, these 3 states have a high Black population, high Democratic Black voter base, but these states do not have a top Black staff in those states. And so, there's definitely regional impacts in terms of lack of diversity as well.
Yeah. Do we, you talked about like pandemic relief as one kind of current example to stress to listeners, viewers, why this issue of congressional staffing is important. Do we have like some of those like direct kind of correlative examples, if you will, that show, kind of the linkage between, like a sort of I told you so, see, I told you so, like you need more Black staff in these offices, like moments that you've all highlighted where legislation was being crafted, chiseled, deliberated upon, passed. And then, once it gets passed, then people start taking sort of a retrospective and realize, oh my gosh, we didn't include, some sort of a really crucial equity element to this. Well, if you had Black staffers, you would have known. Do we see those examples? Have you been able to highlight those examples in this type of research?
Yeah, I think if we think about the recent legislation that passed for the Paycheck Protection Program, right, where initially the rollout, Black businesses especially had a difficult time getting those loans approved because there was not a provision, catered to smaller banks, community banks, right? And so, they had to go back and realize, oh, okay, maybe, that type of provision, could have allowed for relief quicker for Black businesses in particular. And so that really is important to have that input. So there are definitely situations like that where legislation has been rolled out and intentionally or unintentionally, they're not provisions that could allow for greater relief for Black businesses or Black workers, Black citizens.
Yeah. What's the response been? Because I know you all have been working on this for some time now. What's the response been from congressional leadership?
So we've been working on this since 2015. Initially, certainly a lot of pushback from both sides of the aisle, but there have been some improvements made on the Hill. So if we think about on the Senate side, the Senate Democrats have established a Senate Diversity Inclusion Office that was established in 2017 that recruits diverse staff for Democratic senators. Unfortunately, Senate Republicans do not have such an effort, so we're hoping that they establish something like that as well. On the House side, they have now a House Diversity and Inclusion Office that also will do resume banking and work with offices on a diversity plan. And so there's been significant improvement. Senators and members of Congress are certainly aware of the issue, and through this campaign that we're doing now, doing interviews on platforms like this, doing op-eds, doing reports, and continuing to make members of Congress aware of the importance of this issue, especially having the summary that we had in terms of the civil unrest regarding, the high-profile police violence against African Americans. And so certainly people are more aware of the issue, and I think that they're more in tune with the need for greater diversity. And there are more programs to help offices and recommend candidates for positions.
Yeah, that's it's always important. LaShonda, the income piece, I'm real curious about because congressional staffing jobs, they're very prestigious.
Absolutely.
Especially very prestigious. I can speaking from personal experience, and I've actually gotten out of a couple of speeding tickets just by flashing across the.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I went in the past, like suddenly, I was like, something just dawned on me. Just show them your card, and just got out of the little speeding thing.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but in my younger days, but the salary is just bad. I mean, these are not lucrative gigs. It really depends on the member, how generous they are, or how stingy they might be in terms of their budget, because each member office gets a budget. So how do you bring in qualified black staffers if they can't even afford with that one job to live in a very expensive place? It's expensive living in DC.
Absolutely, it is. And not only is the pay not where it needs to be, actually the demand in terms of responsibilities in these roles are very demanding. And so you have to navigate a large workload. There's meetings, congressional hearings. You have to engage with constituents. So not only is the pay not commensurate with the experience and, certainly different jobs that they can get off the hill, but, you may not even have the time to work another job, right? And so I think the thing that needs to happen is that there needs to be structural change on the Hill, as you reference member MRAs and budgets that members of Congress have. There needs to be more of an investment in congressional staff. These budgets really haven't kept up with inflation. So really the pay, if you look at it, has actually decreased over time because there hasn't been significant investment on the part of our legislative branch to actually invest in themselves and actually invest in talent. That is so important. And unfortunately, Black folks, when they come to the Hill, they have to maybe financially support their family members, right? And so, we don't have the luxury to not make as much money as we can, right? Because a lot of us who might be up for these kind of positions, maybe the only ones in our family who can, get a high profile job. And so there are definitely like a lot of structural changes that need to be made in terms of investing, in, staff.
Yeah.
So that has to happen. That's something else in terms of, in addition to making the institution aware of the issue in terms of lack of diversity, but also, making a ploy for them to invest more financially into members' budgets so that they can pay staffers more. And I think something else that you mentioned is that members have the luxury to pay their staff whatever they want. So there's not a centralized HR office that says, hey, if you get a legislative assistant, they have to make a certain range. So because members really like to run their office in a way that they see fit. And certainly there's benefits to that, but there are certainly cons in terms of the variation that can really happen between offices. So having, for example, a centralized HR could help staffers get paid equally across offices, and while also trying to build in the flexibility so members can run their office how they see fit, but making HR more centralized could also help with that as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be key. And the reason I asked that income question too is because we're talking about the need for more Black staffers, but like, where do those Black staffers come from, right? Because sometimes it's one thing when you say, okay, we want a Black face in the room, a Black face at the table, but and the automatic assumption is, oh, okay, they've come from this really distressed, vulnerable neighborhood, like North Philly, for example. But maybe that's not the case in a lot of occasions. You could have Black staffers who are coming from fairly stable, affluent, middle class Black families, went to college, have lived a relatively stable life. They understand what it's like being Black in America, but from a different perspective. So I wonder about like the opportunities for Black staffers who are coming from low income or vulnerable backgrounds who really struggle to get to that point, to get to that very humble beginnings. Are we thinking about that? Are we thinking more intentionally about that? Because I saw that as someone who I didn't come from an affluent background, and really, just wiggled my way, forced my way into those Capitol Hill jobs. but we know how DC works. I mean, there's a
Yes.
lot of networking and a little nepotism, no, a lot. And so it's not like these jobs are equitably doled out, even when it comes to, I have to say it, even when it comes to, in some cases, those the black staffers. And so how do we also address that, where we can get a vast array of perspective and experience, not just black faces, but black faces from places like a Prince George's County, where it's relatively stable middle class, but also places like in North Philadelphia, where it's not as stable, but they work their way to the top and they can offer that perspective and experience too.
Yeah, that's so important. I can think back when I interned on the Hill, and like you, I come from inner city, Rochester, New York, and it was very hard trying to find an internship. And so I know that firsthand experience just from internship, let alone a higher position. There just needs to be a lot more investment into getting folks from those types of communities. And so there are some, for example, I mentioned internships, so if you think about, like, there's some newer organizations like Pay Our Interns or College to Congress that do help low income diverse candidates get internships. And so that resource is available. And so just advertising to different students from different backgrounds, because they may not even know that these resources exist. I had mentioned before that the Hill Diversity Office on the House side, as well as the Senate, they collect resumes and things like that, but it really is difficult. I know for me, when I tried to get my internship, I was messaging people I didn't know on LinkedIn and different things like that. And so it just really is very difficult. I will say also too, another resource is there are several diverse staff associations that also collect resumes from current, but also folks off the Hill that you can send your information to. And so there are a lot of different resources like that that we try to point people to, but there really needs to be more of a concerted effort to reach out to these communities, because their perspective, not only from whatever college or educational attainment that they receive, is important, but also, as you might know, like coming from a disadvantaged background, there are a lot of street knowledge and things that you kind of learn in terms of how to navigate that I think is really important and a great perspective to bring to policy making that not everyone has. And so actually putting a value on those type of skills, right, for offices, I think is really important.
No, it is absolutely is valuable. And so this was a really great conversation here too, because we definitely need to continue it at some point, LaShonda, because it's just there's so many people don't understand like the opportunities that are out there. I did the same exact thing you did. Just volunteering a little time, interning. Starting off interning unpaid,
right?
So,
which was hard.
Which was hard, And while in college, and went to college in DC, so I was like, okay, I've always wanted to do this. Since I was a kid, was like, I want to work on this place, at this place. So, and it finally worked out, but it doesn't have to be that way. Is basically what I'm saying, and then it can be so valuable. And so, and that's the other thing too. It's like these are slots that are primarily reserved for, I feel, and you've seen it too, middle class, upper class white kids.
Absolutely.
For like they can just, it's like they can take even a year off from college sometime or after college, and they can have their parents. And I know this for a fact. I know staffers who have their parents paying their rent while they have their plush congressional staffer jobs, and a lot of us out there don't have that luxury, but then Congress misses out on that perspective. So thank you for this, LaShonda, and thank you for
thank you so much for having me.
Let Spencer Overton and the team, I haven't talked to Spencer in a while, but let them know we really appreciate it. And next time you guys are in Philly, because I know you all were in Philly last year before pandemic, talking about workforce development, give us a call, man, please. We'd love to get the word out on that. Absolutely. We've been talking with LaShonda Brinson at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. And what do you do, real quick, LaShonda, before we let you go, what do you exactly what you do at Joint Center?
Yes, so I'm a senior fellow of diversity and inclusion, so I primarily work on this campaign in terms of doing research reports on congressional staff diversity, but we also do different work on different political issues in terms of voting, and we do a lot of work around COVID and its disparate impact on Black communities, so we do a weekly roundup that we send out to our listserv, so you can find more information at jointcenter.org and sign up for our newsletter.
Absolutely. Yeah, doing work. Joint Center has been around for a long time, since the 70s.
Yes, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year.
That's right, 50th anniversary, Black Think Tank, and it's America's Black Think Tank. And I know Spencer's been doing some work in the past several years reviving it. And so you all are doing some good work there. So jointcenter.org for more information. So LaShawna, looking forward to bringing you back on, and some of your other colleagues, including Spencer, to talk about the work that you're doing. So thanks so much for your time. Feel better.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Take care. All right. Thank you. Take care. Okay, let's take a break, and phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
PECO is here to help this winter. With LIHEAP, you can get up to a $1,000 cash grant towards your PECO bill. You don't have to be behind on your bill to qualify, and you'll never have to pay it back. Even a family of 4 with an annual income of $40,000 is eligible. So don't count yourself out. This deal is first come, first served, so apply now at PECO.com/LIHEAP or call 800-34-HELP4. That's 800-34-HELP4.
Always Best Care is a great place to work.
Flexibility, leadership, purpose,
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity, inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
1 month, 25 bold ideas. A more just, equitable, and prosperous Philadelphia. Join speakers like Reverend Michael Eric Dyson, MSNBC anchor Ali Velshi, LAPD Sergeant turned police reformer Cheryl Dorsey, author and poverty fighter Wes Moore, Black Thought of the Roots, and WURD's own Charles Ellison for the Philadelphia Citizens' 3rd annual Ideas We Should Steal Festival. Presented by Comcast NBC Universal, Tuesdays throughout December. Find out more and reserve your spot at thephiladelphiacitizen.org/Ideas We Should Steal Festival. For WURD members, check your email for discounts and complimentary access details. Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Keep your dial locked to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media.
Looking for employment? JD's Auto Body and Painting is hiring. They have 2 positions if you have 5 years experience in auto body and framework. Also seeking painter with 5 years experience. And if you have experience as an A or B assembler, JD's Auto Body can be the place for you. Please call JD's Auto Body at 215-848-5949 or email jdsautobodyandpainting@comcast.net.
With Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Yeah, some really tragic news coming out of Detroit. Our friend Janice Hazel, who's a regular contributor here on Reality Check WURD, just notifying us about the loss of the very sudden, the untimely transition of Michigan Chronicle managing editor Patrice Massey, who died at 37, I'm told. I didn't realize she was that young. And I had interacted with Patrice. This is a while back, about maybe a couple of years back. Just sort of having some interactions and interface with the Michigan Chronicle and setting up content like Janice Hazel, Janice Hazel, who joins us occasionally on our roundtable segments here on Reality Check. So condolences to her family up there and to the Detroit family. Also, noticing through that that Wayne County Commissioner, Wayne County is the county that Detroit's within, Jewel Ware also dying of a heart attack this week. So she was also the vice chair pro tem for the Wayne County. I guess it's like the county council for Wayne County. Wayne County becoming a major flashpoint of this 2020 election as well. So, dealing with a lot of loss up there. Like we're dealing with loss everywhere. But some of our best and brightest leaving us or being taken from us during these very rough, dark, uncertain times. Not sure about the causes of, they're saying Patrice transitioning, passing from natural causes, but I thank you for sharing that, Janice. And Janice just sent us an email and condolences to Patrice's family and her also her children too. She leaves as a mother, so that's got to be really heartbreaking and just very tragic to leave so soon like that. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Also, don't forget about the marketplace, the Buy Black marketplace that we are promoting, that we are pushing this holiday season, this pandemic holiday season. WURD still fulfilling its mission for our community to buy black, and so we're still accommodating that. We built a virtual infrastructure for that since we can't meet in person. We've got a wordradio.com marketplace. That's our Buy Black holiday marketplace. Go to wordradio.com/marketplace and wordworks.com/marketplace as well, so you can support black businesses during this pandemic, and then you can also know that you're supporting the community. You're making sure that those black dollars circulate within the community by buying black this holiday season, this very rough holiday season. So trying to do as much as you can, and all of us just trying to support one another. We've been there before, so this is we're no strangers to struggle. And so, we find creative ways to adapt. And so we're doing the best and the most that we can, trying to do more to support that mission and that cause. We're going to go into the citizen segment very shortly. That's coming up. That's also our weekly or regular exercise here on Wednesdays. Supposed to be talking with Kenny Holtzman and Aaron Crump of Philly Youth Basketball. That's coming up next. And also a little bit later on, at 12 o'clock hour, we'll be talking to the music editors at the Daily Bruin out there in Los Angeles, Natalie Brown and EJ Penaligan, about hip-hop and politics, how they both intersect, how they've been clashing, especially as of late. So that'll be a little bit later on. That should be an interesting discussion, fascinating discussion a little bit later on. And at 12 o'clock hour, definitely appreciate folks who've been listening in and watching in. Continue. I think we had some comments from folks. We did have a couple comments from folks on Twitter. Lola saying, responding to our earlier conversation that we were having with Sojourner Habe about, the accessibility of the 2020 election, people doing mail-in. But Lola was like, wow, the most affected group of COVID, job loss, evictions, food insecurity, on and on. They still stayed home and didn't vote. It's unacceptable, and they will keep suffering if their voice isn't heard, and not voting. The politicians won't care about their issues. So that's a good point. And so, and the politicians are going to have to do a better job of, and all those other folks, of making sure that that franchise is accessible, that people are accessing it and using it and maximizing it. Michelle Tulloch-Neal was listening to our conversation we just had with LaShonda Brinson, and was saying, are we intentional about recruiting black staff? And then LaShonda Brinson was just talking about that there are different efforts that are afoot that have been going on for some time that could be better, that could be a little bit more robust as far as getting more black staffers on Capitol Hill. Junior Lee, how can an 18-year-old pursue this career? I can tell you from personal experience, there are ways to go about this. One is, if you're someone who's 18 years of age or older, maybe you're looking for, and you're in a position to do so. Maybe you're in college, you stashed a little bit of money away, and you know, you can, or you have a family member that lives in DC, you can kind of stay with them for a few months. I mean, the first thing is just going to whomever your member of Congress is, and this is just one way of going about it, going to who your member of Congress is and volunteering your time, like, you know, letting them know what your skill sets are. If you know, you write well, you know how to do research well, you know how to do this and that, and become a volunteer intern to start off. And then that's how you formalize relationships with that particular office. And, you know, and kind of go from there, you know, just as kind of that stepping stone. So that's one way to get into it. The other way is obviously to go to sites like house.gov and senate.gov. If you've already got something of a polished resume, you've got some expertise working for politicians, elected officials, candidates, you know, try also, in the meantime, try going to house.gov, see the listings, the classified section. You know, they have openings for staffers all the time, and then, you know, try your luck at that. But you know, the way that worked for me and for a lot of others who were in a similar position is, you know, you go up there and you just start to volunteer. You know, you go, it'll start off unpaid. If they really, really like you, then they'll like, oh, hey, you know what? We have budget. We'll give you a stipend. The other thing I forgot to mention, and I appreciate this question, Junior Lee. The other thing I forgot to mention is you get paid monthly. So you got to make sure you budget well too. You get paid monthly when you work on Capitol Hill. At least that was the case when I was working up there. You get paid once a month. So you get, like, you know, your total kind of whole paycheck, and then you got to make sure you budget well, because you got to make sure that, you know, you got to, your calendar, your bills calendar, all that stuff has to be laid out really well. So, or, you know, or you can volunteer. It doesn't have to just be your member of Congress from your home district. It could also be, you know, a member of Congress that you have been paying attention to, a member in the House or even in the Senate. And then just, I would advise, I mean, you can call, but I mean, well, right now in the pandemic, it's going to be hard to do this, but post-pandemic, I don't know how people are going to facilitate that. I don't think people are kind of focused on this right now, to be honest with you. But post-pandemic, once things lift, take a trip, especially if you're in Philly. Hop on that train or hop on the bus, depending on how. I mean, it's not that expensive to hop on the train. Just go to D.C. and Capitol Hill's right up the street from Union Station, the train station, and, you know, know exactly who you want to talk to or what office, and then be dressed in a suit. Seriously, be dressed in a suit, like, and you know, suit and tie, and start going up there with a resume and see if you can volunteer your time as an intern. And then somebody will call back. It worked. It worked for me and a few other people. And LaShonda was even saying it worked for her. So feel free to email me if folks have questions about that. cellison@wordradio.com. If you have a young person who's interested in learning how to get into that space and working for legislators, lawmakers, there are ways to do that. And they're always looking for helpers. They're always looking for help. All right, let me take a break. And thank you for that question, Junior Lee, by the way. Appreciate that. Let me take a break, and then when we come back, we'll head into our citizen segment at the top of the noon hour here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Have you heard about City Council's plan to build more affordable housing, repair existing homes, create jobs, and support small business? The Neighborhood Preservation Initiative will invest $400 million in Philly communities. Read about it at www.phlcouncil.com/NPI.
Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939.
Want the latest in WURD swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM. WURDradio.com.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, we're heading to our citizens segment, and you know the Ideas We Should Steal Festival is happening right now, so you should check that out. Go to the PhiladelphiaCitizen.org for more information. Also check out that recent panel discussion that I moderated at the Ideas We Should Steal Festival, which is virtual this year, but I moderated a panel about police reform, issues related to that whole conversation around police reform, defund the police, etc. So you should definitely check it out. And other panels, other insightful discussions and conversations at the Ideas We Should Steal Festival 2020. Go to the PhiladelphiaCitizen.org. Also featured during that festival and featured in the Philadelphia Citizen is Philly youth basketball. The Citizen actually awarded recently a $50,000 grant to pilot this basketball-based program. It's in Philly. In fact, we have two of its founders here. We got Aaron Crump and also Kenny Holzman. They're joining us by Skype, so you can watch them on WURD TV. They're going to talk about this innovative new effort and an idea we should steal. Of course, was being highlighted in the Philadelphia Citizen and during the festival. So it's great to talk to them. We're going to learn a little bit more about Philly youth basketball. How are you both doing?
Doing fine. Thanks for having us.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm doing great as well, man. Thank you.
All right. This is great. So let me, Aaron, I'll start with you about the inspiration behind a program like this, Philly youth basketball. Basketball has always been a very significant kind of legacy sport in Philadelphia, right? And so we know how basketball is so important to the fabric of Philly life. Everyone who's grown up in Philly knows how important basketball is. So what's the inspiration behind this, and what's the mission? Just to kind of get your perspective on that first.
The inspiration behind the program, quite simply, is our youth and the kids in the city right now. Me personally, my personal inspiration, I'm not too sure if many know, but my father was legendary basketball player Hank Gathers. He passed away at when I was at the age of 6 years old, and although I gained some financial stability from it, I didn't have much guidance, and I made a lot of bad choices, which led me to have some experiences with the criminal justice system. Later on in my life, I wound up spending 5 years in prison. Like I said, due to many of the decisions that I made, and again, not having a really good, stable support system like what we're trying to do. So, so basically, with this program, we're trying to be, and I'm trying to be, what I didn't have when I was younger, which was somebody to mentor me, put me in the right situations, kind of guide me through my life. And like I said, that's exactly what we're trying to do here with this program. Also, as you may know, the gun violence has really spiked in the city. There's many different factors that have caused that, but due to COVID taking away a lot of activities, it seems as if things are heightened and the gun violence is heightened. And so one of the main missions of this program is to kind of get the kids into something positive, so they're not floating around in the streets and get into trouble by happenstance. Again, speaking on my own personal situation, I was financially in a better situation than a lot of other inner city kids, but without direction, I wound up in the same exact situation as a lot of unfortunate kids who are out, doing all sorts of things. So that's basically my information from a personal personal standpoint.
I think it's very important to hear that personal story and to give people a sense of how this is. It's not just about that personal story. There's a personal mission behind this, and talk a bit about that, Kenny. In terms, Kenny Holman is the president CEO of Philly Youth Basketball. So you just recently getting this grant, this grant from Spring Point Partners, $50,000 grant to start, as seed to get this program jump started this fall in the middle of a pandemic. What's that challenge been like for you, Kenny? Trying to get this program going in the middle of a pandemic, finding things for young people in Philly to do in the middle of not just a pandemic, but also a gun violence epidemic. We're about to hit 500 homicides in Philly before by the time we hit the end of 2020, which is really, really, I've gone into all kinds of conversations daily about that, but we'll try not to go off on another track in this conversation. But now we understand why it's so important to have programs like these. But can you describe the challenge, though, trying to implement something like this with these kinds of major events taking place right now?
Sure, and it certainly has been challenging, but I think if there's any organization that's been well equipped to deal with the challenges, it's us. We were founded June 1st of 2015, so by the time we took on this assignment, one that we call a stretch assignment, we deal mostly with kids, 4th grade to 8th grade. And my co-founder and I, Eric Worley, for the past 3 years have been talking about not just gun violence, but youth-on-youth gun violence. And we had the observation that we've got, pound for pound, some of the best, most positive coach mentors in our whole city. People like Aaron Crump and Tori Harrison and Jaron Garner, Kyle Lafferty, who were really ready to lead us into this new program called I Am Because We Are. And that's for older youth, many of whom who have gotten involved with the law. So we built the program, and that included partnerships with the DA's office and its diversion program and Philadelphia Anti-Drug, Anti-Violence Network. And we felt that even with COVID, we were going to figure out a way to be in front of and with young people. So we started at the Lucian E. Blackwell Center in Mill Creek, 46th and Aspen. We've been there for a while. We've been a little bit at the 23rd Street Armory, and then also at Total Turf in New Jersey. And one of our learnings has been that these young guys, black boys between the ages of 15 and 17, really wanted coach mentors to get deeply invested in their lives. And I mean that holistically, in an athletic sense, but also, meaningful conversations about life, about identity, about goals, about masculinity, about love. And it's all those things that Aaron and his colleagues, Tori, Jaron, and Kyle have been able to immerse in a really deep, authentic way.
Yeah. Well, Kenny, and also we have a viewer here who, Ruben Mills, watching us on WURD TV. at our Facebook live stream, and he just was commenting on you, Kenny. He said, Kenny Holzman, true leader, legendary leader in Philly, connecting urban youth through basketball, economic empowerment, and servant leadership. So, you know, the reputation is out there, Kenny, of course. So I just wanted to thank you for viewing us and watching us, Ruben. Appreciate the comments. I'm sure Kenny does. Kenny, real quick, why basketball too? Why basketball for you? Why basketball as the primary? And I'm saying this also as someone who's real curious about that answer. I didn't do basketball. I lived in a Philly where everyone was playing basketball but me. So I was more of a tennis guy. I found like those public tennis courts at the end of the street, and a track guy. I couldn't do basketball. I was too clumsy for it. But why basketball for you?
Yeah, so I had been running Arthur Ashe, speaking of tennis.
Yeah, I got some instruction there. Very nice place. Yeah.
And that became Legacy, its new name. And probably 2 years in, a number of gentlemen in the basketball community, people who I held in really high regard, you know, Coach Bill Ellerby, some of his players, Leonard Stewart, Sean Red Smith, Alvin Williams and Jason Lawson, started coming into the Legacy Center very regularly and shared a really common narrative. And that was that, why do we see all these youth sport organizations with professionalized staffs and nice facilities, a lot of black men in positions of leadership, but we don't have that with basketball? And that's the iconic sport of Philly and of its black community. And there's a really low economic barrier to entry and a really low cultural barrier to entry. So I never use the expression, you know, we use tennis as a hook. The organization used that before I got there. I never did, because I felt like it wasn't a hook, but it was a really powerful acquired taste. Basketball is a hook, and you see this in playgrounds and culturally, the number of young kids who are really influenced by the game.
Right.
So, and I love ball to play and to coach. I really like it as a medium to attract young people, and then to build academics and leadership development and personal identity formation around it in a holistic way. So the two pieces in my life that I have found to be the most vibrant and potent as context for young people, one is where I met Reuben Mills, and that is through the Philadelphia Freedom Schools work. That's where I met Isaiah Thomas, using the black struggle and the role of young people in the civil rights movement. Amazing context for holistic learning and development. And the second one, in my opinion, is this great game of basketball. And at PYB, we blend sport and society, sport and social justice, learning and doing for that kind of intellectual, academic, social growth to go alongside the, you know, the sport.
Yeah. Aaron, for you, is what you're saying and your work, you know, you've been on the PYB team, and also I should let listeners know, if they don't already know, go to phillyyouthbasketball.org. That's the website for Philly Youth Basketball, and you can learn how to get involved. You can also donate. I need to know, that's one of my other questions, how do I get my hands on a Philly Youth Basketball sweater? So it's just like, I love that sweater. I love that logo. I got to get my hands on that. But that's a whole nother issue. We'll get into that later.
All we need is the size and the mailing address.
All right, there you go. Okay, I'm going to follow up on that.
Yes,
I appreciate that. So, Aaron, is this working? Like, what's the performance metric for success in a program like this? When do you know it's working as you've been working with it through the years? When do you see those sparks of success in those young people who are in this program?
Now, honestly, when we're dealing with youth, Charles, I feel like it's going to take some time. You know, it's going to really take a little bit of time for us to really quantify just how much we've helped these kids in this community. Right now, what I think is most important is kind of like building those relationships with them, and that's what we were doing. Running our workshops, and then having an on-court basketball component as well. We were getting to know these young men on a personal level. And so, again, that takes time to build trust and to build a relationship with them, right? To the point where, they can start sharing some of their personal goals and some of the things that they want to do in life. But first we have to, like I said, you have to really build that relationship with them. And that's where I take, the job serious. Sometimes it's not always at the program where, we speak with them. A lot of the times it's on the phone. A lot of the times it's through the video game, believe it or not, but that's their medium. That's how they communicate with each other. And so I felt like it's really important for me to first, get on their level and find who they are as young men and who they are as people. And then we can begin to try to help them and push them in the right direction. But in the meantime, we put them and incubate them with a lot of love and support. And we're trying to build a family. That's what we call it when we sit down and we all congregate and we talk for that first portion of our program. We're trying to build a family first. Once we can gain their trust and they can understand that we truly care about them, then we can, begin to push them forward and help them achieve some of their goals. So, yes, that's a fair question. How is it working? But I do believe it's working without any numbers right now, strictly because I have a relationship with 12 or 13 guys that I didn't have before. They have me as a line, for anything, advice, if they want to play basketball. And again, that's something that I didn't have when I was younger. And not to say that I didn't have family members and people who cared about me, but it's just a little different when you have somebody outside of your circle, who truly cares about you and wants you to succeed, for whatever reason. But for me personally, like, I know I could have benefited from that, right? So it really drives me and pushes me to engage with them in any way that I can. And so just the fact that we have a relationship with them and we have something positive for them to be in, for me, I think it's working. I'm extremely proud that they take to us, that they took to the program, and that they're eager to see how we're going to move forward in the future.
Yeah, it's just so important. I think you're absolutely spot on with that. Kenny, the future, while we got a couple more minutes here, the future for this program and sort of is it Philly Youth Basketball? I mean, is there going to be an infrastructure for also competition or other types of dynamic activities? Like what will this metastasize into long term, you think, in your mind?
Yeah, so we've set out 5.5 years ago to build a program, an organization, and a physical center that can have transformative power in the lives of kids, in the lives of emerging leaders like Aaron, and in the community. So we have a year-round program right now. We have 5 different programs through the year, a collegiate summer camp series, a middle school partnership program, a Hoopers Girls Empowerment program. We have school day learning pods. We have the program I Am Because We Are with older youth that Aaron described. And we've recently launched a financial literacy program. We're going to be making some big announcements in the next couple weeks about a $25 million youth development and community empowerment center that we're going to be building in the Nicetown section of North Philadelphia.
Okay.
Been busy raising money and political support, and this will be, in my estimation at least, the most comprehensive and the most impactful physical center for urban basketball-based youth development, education, and community empowerment of anywhere in the country. And it's going to help us serve 5,000 to 6,000 young people a year.
Wow. For
the next 100+ years. And I do want to say something else. is we will be building that center with the most prominent level of Black-owned businesses and contractors, Black workers, and Black apprentices in the skilled trades as compared to any other construction project in the history of our city and region. And then once we open up, there'll be 5 or 6 enterprises in the center, a healthy foods commissary, a full service financial planning and financial literacy workshop, strength and conditioning, health and wellness, a retail shop. All of these program elements are going to have with them a real strong prevalence of Black-owned businesses running.
Mm-hmm. I think we got to bring Kenny. If you can still hear us, got a little bump, little technical bump there, so we might have lost him.
Yeah, we were doing well. We were doing well.
Yeah, we're doing well too. There you go. Can you hear us now, Kenny? I finished that last thought with Washington for a few seconds.
Yeah. So we've got a real commitment to
sounds like
community empowerment, and it's going to manifest itself in a number of great ways, and it's been baked into who we are for 5.5 years.
I'm looking forward to that and seeing everyone, seeing you both on the other side of the current apocalypse. I'm sure we'll get through it. Yeah, but this has been great, great conversation. So I'm looking forward to it. We've been talking with, you just heard Kenny Holtzman. He's president, CEO of Philly Youth Basketball. Once again, go to phillyyouthbasketball.org for more information. Also, ways in which you can get involved with this effort. And also maybe you got a young person who's interested in basketball, wants to get involved, as they're building this program up. Great place to go to. And also been talking to Aaron Crump, who's on the Philly Youth Basketball team, one of the league coordinators, directors for Philly Youth Basketball. Both been joining us by Skype here on WURD TV, live on WURD Radio as part of our regular citizen segment. Go to the PhiladelphiaCitizen.org to learn more about this effort and what they've been up to as well. And they've been highlighted in the Ideas We Should Steal Festival for 2020, the PhiladelphiaCitizen.org for more information. Gentlemen, thank you both. Really appreciate this. Appreciate this work. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you so very much for having me.
All right. Be safe out there. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Peace. Yes,
all right. Peace. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're supposed to be having a conversation with the music editors at the Daily Bruin. They'll be joining us shortly from Los Angeles. We're going to talk about the intersection of hip-hop and politics, how those two have been relating to one another, talking to one another, and most times, clashing with one another. So Natalie Brown, EJ Penaligan are scheduled to come on next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In Pennsylvania, it's now illegal to sell tobacco products, including cigarettes, cigars, chewing tobacco, vapes, or electronic cigarettes to anyone under 21. Stores can get fined up to $1,000 for selling tobacco to someone who is underage. Know the law. Check IDs. Post your retailer license. Make sure only employees have access to tobacco products and only sell tobacco products to customers aged 21 and older. Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, kind of work people more than 8 hours without overtime, kind of work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Want to buy black for the holidays? Word Radio has got you covered. WURD is proud to present our virtual holiday marketplace online. Support local, small, Black-owned businesses through the marketplace and purchase your holiday gifts today. Visit wordradio.com/marketplace or wordworks.com/marketplace. The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to, there we go. Welcome back to Reality Check here on WURD. We're on 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philly proper, Delaware Valley, but beyond, and we lost her, but we'll get her back, I'm sure. But beyond, we are on wordradio.com for our live stream throughout the nation, throughout the world. Word TV on YouTube and Facebook, and Word app as well. Go to wordradio.com again for all the information. At onWURD on social media too. Joining me now by Skype, and you can watch him on Word TV, is EJ Penaligan. You see him. He is music editor, or one of the chief editors at the Daily Bruin, which is the newspaper of record for UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. But they got a great newspaper, by the way. The student-run newspaper, the Daily Bruin. I read it every now and then. And Natalie Brown is also joining us, music editor at the Daily Bruin. And you two have been writing a wonderful series called Life and Hip Hop. And you've been examining, like, regularly, frequently, there's been these articles, columns coming out about the different aspects of hip-hop culture, and especially how those aspects of hip-hop culture and hip-hop music intersect with social and political issues that we're dealing with, issues like gentrification, drug culture and usage, feminism in hip-hop, etc. And I've been noticing, I've been reading it, so some excellent work that you've both been doing, so I had to invite you on to talk about it. How are you both doing? Excellent. We got you, Natalie. All right, good.
Oh, sweet, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Natalie, let's start with you, music editor. Why this series? Why Life in Hip Hop? What was that all about? What inspired that?
Well, actually, how it started was EJ and I, we submitted separate applications, like we didn't know each other, and then it just so happened to be for the same kind of column idea, which was really weird. But I know that I wrote an article about a Nipsey Hussle discussion that was happening at UCLA back in February, and it was like the best experience I've had at UCLA. I learned so much, and we went through kind of his lyrics, like his philanthropy, everything that he was doing with regards to that. And I just felt like I learned so much and developed such a greater understanding, and therefore had like a stronger connection to him and his music. Yeah. So like reflecting back on that kind of discussion, I kind of realized in my head that in order to have an appreciation of something, you really have to be able to understand it. So I kind of wanted to take that principle and apply it to like hip hop on a greater scale, and just kind of like show, I guess this series is a good like documentation of us just learning more and developing a greater understanding and appreciation of like a music genre we love a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, you know, that brings to mind EJ, and I'd love to get your perspective on this too. You know, there's a favorite track of mine from the Roots, who hail from Philly. You know, Philly has a rich hip hop legacy. You know, hip hop being the love of my life, right? And so talk about that from your perspective, EJ, how that became such a love where you're writing about it regularly in this Life in Hip Hop, which is it's a well-written, I have to say, I mean, it's a well-written and well-structured series that you all are putting together. It's very thoughtful and intentional. But what's your perspective on it, EJ, about why hip hop is the love of your life to go ahead and embark on a journey like this?
Yeah, for sure. Before I start, thank you for the kind words once again. But yeah, I'm 20 years old now. I've been listening to hip hop for, you know, well over half of my life at this point. Just growing with the genre, learning and going through all the different phases it's gone through in the past 10 plus years. And specifically within the Daily Bruin itself, like in my time, in like my two plus years going on to 3 with the Bruin, I have not seen a lot of coverage in hip hop specifically, and just knowing that it's one of the hottest genres in the world right now, one of the most popular genres in the world, knowing that it's something that I have such a sincere passion and appreciation for, I wanted to be able to talk about the genre in a level of, you know, depth and I don't know, like not seriousness, but just like more of a deep dive into the way it influences these different aspects of life beyond just like the general discussion I usually have with friends about hip hop. Like, oh, does this song sound good? Oh yeah, that song is fire.
Right, right.
Just like that. We really just wanted to explore. Yeah.
And what you were saying earlier too, you know, you hadn't seen that in the Daily Bruin. We don't even see that primarily. Daily Bruin's been around for a long time. DailyBruin.com for people who want to check that out. And it's not just about like UCLA stuff, which is a major school, you know, an elite academic institution. But it's just you know, a lot of the content there is like just talking about general things, but it's coming from obviously a student perspective. But you don't see that really regularly in mainstream publications like that coverage, that thoughtfulness, talking about hip hop. What was the thing, you're just throwing this out here to both of you before we get in kind of specific pieces, but what surprised you the most about this investigation or about this exploration of life in hip hop? What were the elements of some of this reporting, some of this discussion that surprised you the most? Natalie?
I would definitely say maybe I'm just ignorant, but I thought that the most surprising thing was just realizing the scale of like how much hip hop has actually influenced like very diverse amount of like different parts of American culture, and just how like reticent people are to give hip hop like appreciation and credit for that. Like I know when I did my fashion article, there's so many like artists, I guess, or designers, like Dapper Dan or like Misa Hilton, kind of like that. And they created all these like beautiful designs, unique things that weren't really accepted outside of the hip hop community, but years later, people are like using them, capitalizing off of them, profiting, and just not really giving them the credit. So I think just seeing that overall pattern was kind of disheartening, I guess.
Yeah, and EJ, that leads to, kind of that discussion you were having in the piece about politics, about life in hip hop, about, politics, that complex relationship between music and politics. The cynicism, there is this it's a complex relationship, but there's also this cynicism that comes out of hip hop. You start off citing a track from Nas, who is a lyrical legend, right? And who talks about, rejecting politics, or, at least like the political status quo. And then, that cynicism leads to, which was real interesting how you brought this concept of theft as an expression of that rejection of politics. Explain that.
Yeah, for sure. This that came from a discussion with Professor Sharon Whitney here at UCLA. She's a musicology professor. Personally, I took her music and politics course like a couple years ago, and when this column topic came around, I just like had to speak to her about it. So I'm glad I got her for this. But yeah, this concept of theft. She explains it as, in back hundreds of years ago when, Black bodies were still enslaved under American ownership. They were basically robbed of, their freedom, something that is right for all American citizens. And within the context of hip hop, in the earlier days, in the 1970s, South Bronx, during the genre's inception, this concept of theft, kind of came back around in the sense that these people back then were, either stealing space to have these DJ parties, or they were sampling breakbeats from other songs as a form of kind of, stealing and kind of making something out of nothing, something that a lot of hip hop scholars like to say, or just a very popular saying within hip hop itself, is hip hop is a way out of no way, and that kind of concept of theft represents that pretty well.
Yeah. One of my favorite artists is out of your areas, out of the Southern California area, Madlib, who's a master sampler, been around for a long time, who I know knew and I think may have collaborated with Nipsey Hussle. But Madlib, just legendary. Or MF Doom out on the East Coast, English born but grew up in New York. MF Doom, he needs to come out with some new stuff. But yeah, just some of my favorite. But they do that constant, and you sometimes wonder, like, did you guys check in with the original artists of this music? Because y'all are sampling quite a bit. Hey, Natalie, real quick, I'm gonna give you this last question, and before we let y'all go in about a minute or two. Because I think it's fascinating. Like you're looking at different issues. You were talking about fashion, and in the context of politics, a lot of political candidates now, like it's kind of a standard, using hip hop as a backdrop, as the prop for their messaging and the rhetoric. Does that work though? Because sometimes I feel like when they do it, they're trying to be authentic, but it kind of just rubs me. I know it rubs a lot of folks the wrong way. It's like negative campaign ads. We always keep asking ourselves, does that really work? I don't know if hip hop and like political messaging works, but just want to get your final thoughts on that.
Well, Well, I definitely wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I think that having hip hop artists like endorse political candidates probably helps with voting, like getting people out to the polls. And I feel like this election especially was kind of really based on like what your morals are, that I feel like you can't really be swayed by, I don't know, someone like Lil Pump endorsing Trump or something like that. But I definitely feel like it's, I guess, important for them to show that like politics is something that people, like young people, should be interested, especially because like young people often listen to hip hop, I find. So I think it would help in terms of getting people involved in politics, but swaying someone to vote for like one candidate or another, I don't know if it really has that big of an impact.
Yeah, we haven't really looked at kind of the empirical evidence just yet. We've been talking with, unfortunately I ran out of time, but keep in touch and keep me posted on how this series continues to evolve. I got to get that professor too. I was thinking about that too, EJ, getting that professor to come on to expound more on this topic, because I think we need to explore it more. But we've been talking in the meantime to Daily Bruin editors EJ Planigan and also Natalie Brown, EJ Penaligan and Natalie Brown at the Daily Bruin. Go to dailybruin.com for more there and to check out this. You should read. It's a very good read. I highly recommend it. Life in Hip Hop. It's on the Daily Bruin. They've been highlighting it and featuring it. So you've both been doing a wonderful job with that. Especially if you got someone like me with my taste, because I'm kind of picky about what I read, to check this out and to have you both on dailybruin.com for more. Thank you both for joining me, and thank you for the work.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
All right, take care. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's open up the phone lines. We'll be right back.
What's up, Philly? It's Sincerely Sarita. The school year is underway, but never before has that experience come in so many shapes and sizes. Is the education of your child being left to a smattering of clumsy in-person and virtual instruction? The COVID-19 crisis has created a market for untested virtual teaching models lacking true credibility. Maybe it's time to reconsider and exercise your choice. Maybe it's time to check out Commonwealth Charter Academy. Here are the benefits to your family. 1, an online education provided at no cost to you, complete with laptop, headset, and help with internet access. 2, partnership with the market leader in cyber education with a nearly 20-year track record of world-class learning. And 3, delivery of a safe, reliable, and comfortable education experience over the internet directly to the confines of your living room. Visit ccaeducate.me today and discover the gold standard of cyber education. That's ccaeducate.me.
Family caregiving can be rewarding and challenging. Family and friends are the backbones of America's care system for older Americans and loved ones to live at home. African American family caregivers care for a loved one for an average of 5 years and help with medical and nursing tasks for over 30 hours a week. But now, caregiving may be harder than ever. AARP has information and online communities of other caregivers. Learn more at aarp.org/caregiving.
Did you know you can catch the flu and COVID-19 at the same time or even back to back? Don't risk catching the flu during the COVID-19 pandemic. The flu shot is a safe and effective way of reducing your chances of catching the flu or spreading it to others. And the flu shot helps protect you and your community from the worst effects of the flu. Don't say, I should have got my flu shot. Call your doctor or visit your pharmacist and get your flu shot today.
Livelihood, the new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey.
Work, 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 work. To me, I be work,
Livelihood
work, work,
is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. With Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, don't forget to check out our WURD Buy Black Holiday Marketplace. Go to WURDradio.com/marketplace or WURDworks.com/marketplace. Go there. You can support local Black-owned businesses, but also buy from, help our dollar circulate throughout the community, buy from Black businesses who are ready to serve you, provide you with some holiday spirit, holiday product during these very difficult, interesting, but hopeful pandemic times in this holiday season. So go to wordradio.com/marketplace, wordworks.com/marketplace for more there. Let me go to the phone lines. 215-634-8065. Toll free is 866-361-0900. Prince out of Schuylkill calling for a reality check. Prince, what's good?
Hey, good interview, because that was information that I had known before. So I was glad to listen and hear them speak about that information.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You're welcome.
See, when a bill is in city council, and in order for that bill to be effective, and in order for city council people to be effective, they put that in committee first. And committee is supposed to kind of like root out all of the issues with the bill. So when it comes to the floor, I mean, if they're doing their job, correct?
Yeah. No, you're right.
And so what I'm saying is that what happens is that when we hear about bills, they're already hijacked in a way where they're going to pass because the committee, if a council person is doing his job who chairs that committee, they're going to get with all the city council people who should have gotten with their constituents to find out if there's anything wrong on why we should or shouldn't pass this bill to eradicate that. So when we talk about the abatement situation, we're not talking about an if. We're talking about all the votes. If a city council person is doing their job, whoever is chair of the committee, they're going to have all the votes for the bills that's needed in a joint agreement or collective body of agreement in order to pass it. So what's the sense of them bringing it to us for us to have an opinion on it if all of them are all of them have concluded that we're all going to vote towards this bill?
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. I mean, it's a very good point.
It's unfair for us. You know, when you talk about delaying the abatement for 2 or 3 years or whatever you talk about, and that's the committee of the city council people, then, you know, the people who had sponsored that bill shouldn't have a job. You know, we shouldn't vote them back in office because they obviously convinced the chair of that committee and other people to support something that the population of Philadelphia was against. We were against the abatement bill, period. We wanted to stop, you know, and so if we get some idiot council person who has said, well, we're going to delay it, you know, that's not what we're asking for. As taxpayers, we know what we're asking for you to delay? We're asking for you to lay towing our cars off the city of Philadelphia to Norristown, Upper Darby, putting them in a township in a place where we can only go get them between 1 and 3 o'clock, and we're paying an enormous storage fee. Like come up with a solution to eradicate that and help us in this city, not delay abatement. So if they're already hijacking it, Charles, where do we get our reprieve from? How do we get the necessary assistance that we need to stop something if it goes into their committee and they're voting on it? I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I mean, one is like, you know, this is why, you know, I'm always trying to encourage people to go to, like, we all have to like do this more. Going to phlcouncil.com is that first stop in learning like when those committee meetings are taking place, because there's always an opportunity during those committee meetings to testify. You know, you could be like just an average resident, or you feel like you're an average resident but you're not. And you could actually be like that one person that could make the difference as far as that legislation is concerned. And I mean, the recourse, you know, it's a mixture, it's a combination, Prince, right? Of, like you just hinted at it, like people needing to be active or activated during these election cycles. And like if they're that upset, that's where like the voter turnout has to increase and people have to be ousted. People then have to be like disemployed from city council if it's that bad, or people don't feel like their city council people are not representing their interests or not adequately notifying them about legislation that's on tap, that's in front of them. You know, we're trying to force, you know, here at WURD, force city council people to do that more. I know I'm trying to force them to do that more by appearing on shows like this and talk more specifically about bills instead of, about those bills that they're introducing, and sometimes like we miss it, sometimes a lot of times they miss it, in terms of keeping us informed. They've got to have, and some council members are better than others at that outreach and communications machine, letting people know, hey, this is what I'm pushing, this is what I'm forwarding, and we need to know. Hey, Prince, where was that? I don't know if you're still there. Where was that happening about the cars? You mentioned something about cars.
Yeah,
from Philly to Upper Darby. Where's that happening exactly?
There. I'll get you the next time we talk. I'll get you the locations of the tow companies that's located outside of Philadelphia. That when residents get their cars towed, we're big business for everybody outside of Philadelphia, man, and it's ridiculous. Like, you can't go see your car, touch your car. So if you got your insurance and your registration and stuff in your car, you got to get in your car in order to show them what it is. And it's a tedious process with those people on the level of disrespect that they have for our Philadelphia residents, and so everybody shouldn't be allowed.
But then
cars.
Are there like, but then people would ask or might counter, well, are there like towing businesses locally that could be handling that kind of that scale?
That's the problem. The Philadelphia Housing Authority should be the only ones towing cars. The police are towing cars, and they're allowing tow companies to tow cars, and there's too many people taking cars in the city of Philadelphia right here. And I'll hang up and listen to you. I don't want to, I know you're about to close the show, man. We'll talk about it another day, but I'll get you those places, man. That's just important. If we're the largest poorest city in our car, that $100 turns into $400 by the time we get our car back.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, man.
No, thank you. Thank you for that, Prince. It's just, and to Prince's point, Philly always finding all sorts of creative ways to create more distress for people, a lot of unnecessary distress. And so, and that's one of those problems, like, as far as car towing. Remember, we went into this a couple of years ago, about like the parking situation and how like parking is micro-targeted, parking enforcement and parking punishment is micro-targeted. Going through each of the zip codes, I did that analysis myself and, kind of broke how like the places where you get the most parking enforcement and tickets. And we kind of knew that instinctively, but then we had the data looked at the zip codes, and it's like, where the places where people can't afford to get parking tickets are the places where the parking tickets are issued the most. But the places where people can afford that kind of towing and parking enforcement, et cetera, that doesn't happen to them. That doesn't happen on those sides of town. And it's unfortunate. So to Prince's point, he's right. But do go to phlcouncil.com on the regular. We'll try to make it, like I said, we're going to try to go into 2021 being a lot more intentional about this. It's a project I'm working on right now, but I just want to make sure that I'm doing it right. So, but you'll start seeing the signs of it and indications of it in 2021. But go to phlcouncil.com, go to calendar, and then you'll see the drop-down menu, council meeting calendar. And then you see, like, for example, Monday, December 14th, there's a special committee on gun violence prevention. They have a hearing coming up to talk about gun violence. That's Monday, December 14th at 10 a.m. And there's a resolution authorizing the creation of a special committee on gun violence prevention to address Philly's enduring plague of gun violence by facilitating coordination among stakeholders and formulating a comprehensive gun violence prevention strategy. So you can testify. Call 215-686-3412, extension 8, if you're interested in testifying at this hearing, or email Brett Nettlekoff, that's Brett, B-R-E-T-T Nettlekoff, Nedelkoff at phila.gov by 3 p.m. I would say 3 p.m. on Friday. That's the business day before the hearing, as opposed to 3 p.m. on Sunday. So you may want to get on that now. We'll do a reminder. Tomorrow we got Philly City Council live, so we'll get into that, I'm sure, tomorrow. That's going to be an extended version. That's the last City Council meeting of the year before they go into a winter or a holiday break. Okay, that wraps this session of Reality Check, our Wednesday midday session of Reality Check. We're headed into The Source with the Black Women's Leadership Council. That's coming up next on Reality Check. So keep your WURD radio dial locked in. I want to thank Troy Wilmore as well. I'm Charles Ellison. I'll see you for City Council Live. We'll be transitioning to City Council Live tomorrow, Thursday, 10 a.m. sharp, God willing. And Philly and beyond, I want you to stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, stay safe out there. Have a great afternoon. Good evening. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.